Welcome back to the party, everybody. This is Morty, and I am your host, Lush, aka TheIndianJesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe. You know I would do it for you, and let's party. Welcome, welcome, welcome. A shout out to Jaden. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are doing Discord every single night. The link is pinned at the top of the chat. It is free to join, or you can become a member of the channel and get full access. We are doing a movie night tonight, actually. It's going to be a good time. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's just dive right in. If you're not familiar, the show Severance. You do not have to see Severance or have seen Severance to understand this, but just going in, you need to understand that the show Severance is about it's a sci-fi show where basically you can get a procedure done where it splits your consciousness. So when you go to work, then, you know, it automatically turns on. And so, and then it automatically turns off when you leave work. So basically you wake up, you go to work, boom, and you're automatically out, and you can go and live the rest of your life. You've made your money, you've done all the work that you do, but you don't need to experience any of that. And so the core thing about the show is that identity of the person that is going to work every day and the ethics around that. So that is a central thing that we're going to be discussing, and we'll go over it a bunch more times because I'm sure people will come in and be like, oh, what is this show about? But basically, if you split your brain into two different people, what are the ethics surrounding both of those new people? So let's dive right in. As always, guys, if you cannot hear the video, please do that.
Think about personal identity, about
Severance.
ethics, about what it means to consent to things, about personhood more broadly.
That's what art should do. And I think that's what.
Oh, and really quick, I'm going to do my best to jump around spoilers and stuff so that if you haven't seen the show, that you can go back and watch the show. And this isn't going to be a spoiler. We are going to be talking about general plots and vague stuff, but nothing that if you hear me say it and then you go watch it, you'll be like, oh, this is ruined because I heard Lutch say that. Yeah, so don't worry about it. No spoilers. Shout out to King Nirvana. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And again, let me amend that. No spoiler. Minimal spoilers. We also got Ty Cobb in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. No, like mustard. Yuck, yuck. Welcome, 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 guys.
What science fiction does extremely well. And I think it's also, though I'm partial to it, what ancient Greek literature does, specifically Greek tragedy.
How does Greek tragedy do that?
I think that should give us courage.
We are definitely
to other people's
going to be jumping into some Greek tragedies.
In the show Severance, would you want to be severed?
No.
So already just asking, would you want to have your brain split in two? Not physically, but would you rather have your consciousness split so that you never have to experience going into work? You just never have to worry about it. Shout out to Guam Tag. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Very good to see you. It's a cool premise for a show. Only seen the first episode. How did you stop there? But so again, you know, we will be talking around spoilers as best we can, but there are some mild spoilers, nothing crazy from finales or twists or anything like that. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Oh yeah, I was in the middle of that. So yeah, the question of would you want to split your brain so that you don't have to are you outie, Jaden? You're working, you're good. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Shout out to Jaden just joining the Discord. It is working and you are in. The obvious question is, well, if I never have to go to work again, but I actually do get the benefits of having been at work, I get the money, I get the experience, I get all of that stuff, why wouldn't I want to do that? But of course, as the show explores, well, now you're creating a new person, and they call them innies and outies, and you see how very different you can be, because the innie doesn't have any of the memories; they're just there to work, and so they develop their own personality, which brings us back to the question of free will. But we'll get more into that. Shout out to M169. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Very good to see you. Running our movie night tonight. What is it called again? The situation, the something. I don't know. Either way, looking forward to it. Welcome to the party. Would you want to get severed?
In the show Severance, would you want to be severed?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't want to create a slave.
Oh, interesting. And you think you're any?
So not wanting to create a slave, and that's a very poignant thing, because if the Audi version, oh, that's amazing. I never have to go to work. I never have to. There's a thing where the baby, a woman severs her entire pregnancy. So she gets it in, finds out she's pregnant, and already she's got a baby. Doesn't have to worry about any morning sickness or anything like that. But what the other side of that is, of course, now there's somebody who is their entire existence is doing your job. They wake up and your Audi has gone in. They wake up in the elevator. They go, they do 8 hours of work. They're done with their day. They go back to the elevator. You go back and live your life. But to them, it's boom, boom, right in and out. And you're right back at work. So essentially creating a slave.
Because I don't want to create a slave.
Oh, interesting. And you think you're any would be a slave.
I would either be making a slave or enslaving myself, and neither of those are things I want to do.
There's a big part of the show. Again, not huge spoilers, but one of the people is trying to resign. And because they are the same person, you can send your resignation, but then it goes to your Audi, who has no idea what's going on at work. And she's like, no, I'm loving not having to go to work. You ain't leaving. And so either you're creating a slave or enslaving yourself.
Enslaving yourself. What if somebody wanted to consent? What if somebody wanted to be severed? So I find the whole thing of like the termination of employment, in other words, the death of the innie.
And that's another aspect, that if you create this innie to go and do your work, if they get fired, if they resign, then that innie no longer exists, and that's essentially death.
The termination of employment, in other words, the death of the innie. What if somebody wanted to consent to being severed, have the thing in the back of the head, the implant, they go to work, they have an innie and an Audi, and then they decide that they want to quote unquote retire. They don't want to be severed anymore. And they're not severed anymore. Did they murder? I don't know. Did they murder themselves? Did they murder somebody else?
It seems like.
Well, and that's the interesting question. If you are saying either I'm creating a slave or I'm enslaving myself, if we're going to go with that question about what happens when that person dies, we have to determine what is your perception of what's going on with that innie. Is that a different person, or is that yourself? You're sharing the same body, but by every definition that we would consider a person, a self, your memories, your experiences, your emotions, your connections, all of those things have been severed. And so it really is, in my opinion, more like creating a new slave. And then if you determine that that slave is no longer useful, then you're killing them.
Like it.
It does seem like it,
doesn't it? It does seem at a certain point when their experiences are diverging and they have no shared memory, that you're creating essentially a different person. And so when you end that person, you're killing them.
So
Ty said, I don't know how we're expected to ride their tide. Not sure what you mean by that. The Jolly Heretic did a whole video about what a person's naval positioning implies. Naval positioning? Like where your belly button is? What does it imply?
So it's a fascinating question. Like, can you consent to do that to yourself?
Yeah, well, I think you have to look forward and say it's not going to be myself anymore.
Exactly. Shout out to Hallie, also joined the Discord. Welcome. And so all of these questions are they're throwing a lot at the beginning here, but you can see how much is really brought up when we introduce this concept.
I think you have to look forward and say it's not going to be myself anymore. It's a little bit like having children, though I think worse. Because but
because if you everything about you is dependent on who you are. The reason you like what you like is because you heard it before and you liked it. The reason that you know not to do certain things is because you have those experiences. And so even if you share the same DNA with somebody and literally the same body, are you the same person? And again, the show explores it very deeply. And I would say pretty clearly, no, they're not the same person.
Though I think worse. Because, but I think it's a similar kind of ethical negotiation that you have to go through.
With
what do you guys think in the chat? Let me know. Would you get severed? Why or why not?
Yourself.
Yeah. to say, okay, I'm creating another person,
Yeah.
right? And this is the same whether you're having children or whether you're severing yourself.
Yeah.
But when you have children, you do it with the sense that I'm going to have a child and eventually they're going to become autonomous on their own.
So I said, so we're all involuntary batteries in this scenario. We're all taxpayers. The horror. So kind of, but you're not a battery for someone else. I mean, I guess in the same way that if you're a worker for someone else. But the battery that you're powering is yourself. And so if you saw the movie Click with Adam Sandler in the way that he uses the remote and just skips through, it's almost exactly that same type of process where he's like, oh, I don't want to deal with this, so I can fast forward through it. The chip does this automatically. So kind of, but not exactly. But from the innie's perspective, the person who's at work, definitely, whether you want to call it a battery or not, just an involuntary slave. King of Honor said, I do it so I can finally tame the tempers. If you know, you know.
Have children, you do it with the sense that I'm going to have a child and eventually they're going to become autonomous on their own. And they're going to be their own person.
Right.
And for me, the moral calculus always comes out to it's better to be alive than not. So that's a good thing to do. But if you're creating another person in your body, that person will never be autonomous.
Multiplicity. I did not see multiplicity. Let's see a little multiplicity. Where's the thing? So Doug Kinney is a busy construction worker struggling to make time for his family and demanding job. When a scientist offers to clone him, Doug accepts and spawns a slightly more macho version of himself. He decides to create a second clone, but this sparks a series of duplications when his second clone begins to feel overwhelmed. Doug attempts to manage his many clones while trying to keep his wife in the dark. Very, very similar type of concept where, yeah, you're creating another version or another person to solve these problems. But then, you know, that comes with its own problems. More money, more problems. More clones, more problems. I would definitely watch that.
If you're creating another person in your body, that person will never be autonomous. Right. They can't even choose to die.
And so that's the difference between having children and creating a clone. That, especially with this, if they can't choose to die, and I think, well, I'll let her say.
To be alive than not, so that's a good thing to do. But if you're creating another person in your body, that person will never be autonomous. They can't even choose to die. They don't get to choose when they retire. And, you know, I'm a classicist, so I'm always thinking about ancient texts. When I think about how the innies can never choose whether or not to die, I think about Seneca the Younger. So Seneca the Younger.
Explain that to us.
Seneca the Younger. Guamtech said, wouldn't sever. I actually find the growth of my job having benefit in my daily life and look forward to growing in it. The more growth, the more accomplishment I feel. And yeah, that's definitely the most well-adjusted way to look at, you know, just any difficult aspects of our lives. But not many people see the value in all of that. Ty said, when I was made to tame myself, I almost got extinguished. I'll go out on my feet, not on my knees. Well, there you go. Standing on business. So Seneca the Younger.
Yeah. So he's fabulous person to read. Really, really accessible still. You can go out, you can buy a translation of him anywhere. He's a Stoic philosopher. Also, strangely, one of
There we go. Shout out to any film with the Stoicism.
You can go out, you can buy a translation of him anywhere. He's a Stoic philosopher. Also, strangely, one of the richest men in Rome. Also the tutor of the Emperor Nero. But he writes a lot about suicide. He's obsessed with this topic. And one of the things he says about it is he says, that's real freedom, is the ability to know that you can die anytime you want. You can always find a means to die. And he tells some really disgusting stories about gladiators and slaves killing themselves in creative ways. And he said,
this is one of the types of thought that you learn to work through as somebody who has left their faith behind. The notion of dying being a bad thing is baked into most religions, and you know, for me it was Christianity. And to be outside of that, and then to see, you know, to be questioning everything, and then to even question, is death a bad thing in all ways? Then you're able to really see this aspect of that, even though it's a little bit dark and macabre. The idea of everybody has the freedom to die when they want to, and you're even taking that away. It's scary. Oh, I know. He just never shuts up about it. I said, in the meantime, I've made my functional and polite situations. Otherwise, I'm a petrified, snarling beast. Well, there you go. We got to do what we got to do.
Some really disgusting stories about gladiators and slaves killing themselves in creative ways. And he says, because that you're always actually free, because you always have the ability to check out. And that's something the innies don't have. They can't leave. They can't keep themselves from working. We haven't seen anybody try to like commit suicide while at work, but they can't retire themselves.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, it's weird because they have the same linguistic.
Actually, you know what? I will talk around it. So her point being
while at work, but they can't retire themselves.
They can't retire themselves. And so there's the resignation process where, again, you can apply to yourself, your outie version of yourself, to say, hey, I don't like it in here. I don't want to work here anymore. But typically that doesn't work because of how disconnected the outie is from the innie. And it's just like, I'm enjoying life. I don't even have to go to work. I'm getting all this money. And not everybody is like Guamtag, where it's like, well, I want to grow. A lot of people just want the money and all of that. But we do see some aspects of what she's talking about, of trying to find other ways to get out, trying to find other ways to be like, no, I'm not going to do this. If you guys saw Black Mirror, there was that episode White Christmas. It had John Hamm, the guy. It was the Christmas one where again, no spoilers, but basically the wife of this one guy blocked him, and they had technology where blocking isn't just like online. You literally they turn into fuzz, and you can't hear them, you can't talk to them, and the story goes on from there. And one part of the story is this guy talking about their Black Mirror technology, where they have cookies, where it's like a Google Home, but what the customer doesn't understand. So in the same way where you might have an Alexa or a Google Home in your house, and you understand that it's just technology, in this White Mirror episode, what they do is actually implant a similar type of chip into the customer's brain so that the chip can learn, and then they put that chip in the Google Home-esque device, same kind of thing, and that person becomes their slave, turning themselves into a slave or creating another.
Seen anybody try to like commit suicide while at work, but they can't retire themselves.
Yeah, it's weird because they have the same linguistic, like they speak English, they have no memories of the past. And that episode recently when they see the waterfall, and they say this is the world's largest waterfall.
And just again, small thing, not a spoiler, but they go on this little outing, and they're, again, because they are so severed from reality and society, there's this like 40-foot waterfall, and the leader's like, this is the tallest in the world, and they're like, oh my god, that's amazing, and clearly like impressive, fun, nice to look at, but not even close. And they just don't know any better.
Fall.
Yes.
And they say this is the world's largest waterfall.
Yeah.
It just blew
69 said also not doing it.
my mind because they had never seen a water. They'd never even been outdoors.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd think I watched that episode and I thought, I bet they'd trip a lot more.
Yeah.
Right. If you're used to just walking on a carpeted office building, you'd probably trip a lot more.
Yeah.
That nitpick aside.
If they have the same physical memories, because if they have the same verbal memories, they do, but they don't have the same memories.
So I guess that's a kind of instinct that maybe comes through with Severance.
And that's another part where you can just kind of chalk it up to the sci-fi aspect, where it's like, okay, you don't have any of your memories, but you still know how to talk, and you still have basically your own personality. But you can handle it. It's a TV show.
But it's true. They don't know anything, and they're not capable of determining their lives.
Focus the camera. What is going on?
They're shut off from control of themselves and control of their own minds because they can't educate themselves.
Okay, so this is what's so interesting and so bizarre. So
before we get to that, shout out to Arrow. Welcome to the party with the $5, getting us started on our Swogo, and of course, a treat for the Overlord. Thank you so very much. This is their 10th super chat on a live stream. Not for me, it's for Morty. Thank you. He very, very, very much appreciates. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Very, very, very much appreciated. That's right, guys. If you look at the top of the chat there, we do have a goal. We can hit it. We can bolt me up. Thank you so much.
Read about these ethical dilemmas, quandaries, theories my whole life, and I've never even considered any of these in the show. None, because the thought of like severing yourself never occurred to me to make ethical dilemmas. Like, I'm fascinated by this idea. If you can consent, I mean, is it even ethical for you, or maybe moral would be a better word, for you to consent to be severed in the first place? Because
given that we don't, you don't know what you're buying into, it doesn't seem like there's any way that this could be, ethical. And so another similar setup is another Black Mirror episode, the one where it's the military one, and they go after the roaches. And when you're signing up to be in the military, and they put this technology where you see the enemy, who is human, as like some type of creature, and it kills your sense of smell and all that, so you can't smell the the blood and guts and shit and all that, and it makes it easier for the soldiers to just be focused on their target. And the question is that ever ethical? If you don't have the counterfactual of what that would be like, how do you know that you want to do that? And same thing with being severed. If you don't know what it's like to be severed, how could it ever be ethical to say, yes, I want to do that to essentially somebody else? We got disguises in here. Gonzag said all severed people should spend at least one day as their counterparts a month. Well, that definitely the company Lumen definitely would not like that. And they definitely don't want to be moral, because you're exactly right. If it was more moral and there was more of an aspect of seeing what the outside world is, it would be a lot harder to get them to focus on the work. And that's all they do. So it's pretty important for them to care about their work.
Or maybe moral would be a better word, for you to consent to be severed in the first place, because you're creating an autonomous individual. And if you notice, what's super interesting is they're all different. They all become different people. Yeah. It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen Star Trek, when there's a transporter accident, Will Riker becomes doubled and he becomes like a completely different person, like a renegade. But all the people who are severed become fundamentally different people. Yeah. So I guess my question is it even moral to consent to be severed?
I think
it would be akin to asking if it would be okay to consent to change your gender. No, I don't think it is.
I think I'm not sure. My instinct would be to say no. Right, because you're going to create this other person who can't control anything.
But the other person is you, though.
Yeah, and in the moment you're deciding.
Are they you, though? So let's go to our poll. The first one, I just wanted to see if you guys knew what was going on. So most of you have seen the show. Again, if you haven't, it's just about splitting your brain in two and using it like the remote in Click. Is it moral to get severed in the first place? Let me know what you guys think. And then she's going to reference some of the Greek ethics and Greek stories. And we're going to dive into those as well.
Who can't control anything.
But the other person is you, though.
Yeah, and in the moment you're deciding it, you're both people. You're potentially both the innie and the outie.
Yeah, and definitely both people. Gontek said, no, the one working works one day a month at least. That way there's an understanding when the worker asks to resign. Yeah, I mean, again, that would definitely be more moral, but for the same reason in the Black Mirror episode, they don't want the soldiers to be able to see that they're shooting other people. They want them to think that they're doing something that they're not. They want them to think that they're shooting at these roaches because that makes it easier for them to be controlled. And so in Lumen, which is the company, yes, this would definitely be more moral, but it would make it a lot harder to get these people who only know one room and a few hallways to do very boring work when they know there's a whole world out there.
So in the moment of choosing, maybe it is all right, because you are technically both people over whom that decision has an effect. But certainly later, if you look to the future effects, no.
Yeah, I guess that's when the bridge to kids doesn't.
No.
Like you can't bridge it. You can't say, "Well, I consented to kids. There are certain obligations," but yeah, that's not your body.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. That's where it ends.
So the other thing that I thought was so interesting. So many things are so interesting in that show. Like, so.
Again, if you're just joining us, we're not going to be going over huge spoilers, but there might be minor spoilers.
The protagonist has sex with her outie in a tent, thinking
Helly.
it's her innie.
Yeah.
Right. And so Ellie, yeah. And his name is Mark, right?
Yeah, Mark and Helly, because her name is Helena.
Helly, yeah, Helly, yeah. So
So while he's catching his words, basically one of the so the innies are just constantly around each other and only themselves. So there's going to be workplace romances and stuff. And there is a part where one person is on the work floor where there's only supposed to be able to be the severed version of themselves, but they're the outside version of themselves. And they end up hooking up, and the dude thinks it's the innie version when really it's the outie version. Sounds like Arpe.
I think I'll tell you what I think. You agree or disagree. I think she feels raped, and I think he feels virtually raped. I think he feels completely violated. Rape would be too strong.
So that's even an interesting point, because even though the outie girl who lied to the innie guy, because the innie guy and the innie girl, they wanted to hook up. No problems there. But now we're taking the outie girl and the innie guy. And so she is tricking him, but she's also using her innie self to get what she wants, and essentially using her body to do that. So everybody is what's the word I should say? Everybody is violated there.
Raped. I think he feels completely violated. Rape would be too strong.
I figured.
She sits in the corner.
Yeah.
She gets in a semi-fetal position. She's crying.
Yes, but I think in the end she ends up getting more angry.
So imagine if you're at work and you have your work wife, and you guys are getting serious and you're about to hook up and you're ready to go. You're on a retreat. It's like, yo, let's go. And you realize it's her twin sister. Yikes. No bueno. Ty said, I have a basic morality according to a modern societal baseline. Avoid the 7 deadlies. Do unto others, yada, yada, yada. Makes a good moral structure.
Ends up getting more angry. To me, it seemed more as if he felt like he had been raped in some way.
That is also true. Yeah.
Yes. And I that makes sense to me. And obviously other people will feel differently about what she's going through. But it seemed more to me like she was angry because she thought something had been stolen from her. Right.
Yeah,
she doesn't like sharing herself
with
her outie.
She is
right. So imagine your work wife is some pious girl. She's out clubbing. She's maybe even a virgin, and you two are getting together, and she wants to give you her virginity, and then her twin sister comes in and is like, yeah, let's do this. Stolen that opportunity, but now because it's actually the same body, the innie no longer has that virginity.
By definition, shared.
Mm-hmm. And she doesn't like that. And so it's less as if she has been personally violated and more as if somebody has taken something that by right is hers. It seemed to me, which is why she comes and she says, I want to do that too.
So so this is the other interesting thing. So she tries to reclaim, it's not just sexuality, but she tries to reclaim the experience for herself.
Well, and ownership of her body.
and ownership of her body.
Yeah.
And just his.
So again, we would have imagine that the twin sister of your work wife comes in, and for whatever reason, that now technically means that work wife is no longer a virgin. So she's gonna come in. All right, let's go. Let's go. Let's do it.
I thought his reaction to that was fascinating as well.
Yeah.
Like, but
His
again,
is more straightforward because he's been tricked into having sex with somebody, and we say that's what we call rape, right? That's one of the things we say.
And they're
but
virgins. That's the other thing. They're virgins.
Yeah, but she is more like a puppet. It's more like she's realized that she is not anything with self-will. Yeah. And that's a very different kind of problem than just saying I was tricked into having sex with someone.
God, that really is. So then it really would be rape.
Yep.
Well, of him, I think.
Oh, I see. Because she wasn't conscious of the memory.
Yeah, the person in control of her was consenting, right? And she wasn't mentally, she wasn't there. So I think we would say that Mark body. But the person.
Yeah, I agree with Peter here again that it is different if we have a work wife and her twin, but if it's the same person, then now her body has been, in that experience, but her mind wasn't allowed to be there.
Person who owned that body was in it at the time, and then she owns it at another time.
Okay, so yeah, it's a fascinating concept to think about, like who owns, because right now I'm the sole owner of my body.
Yeah, we can't change that.
Me too.
Yeah. And so and so I don't. Okay, so
this is why I think, by the way, this is why I brought up the idea that it's kind of like having a child, because the only situation we have that's comparable that people experience now is being pregnant. Is that women can become pregnant, can have another person in their body, and they can make decisions for that other person, right? And it's a very fraught kind of moral position to be in, because on the one hand, you have people who say, you shouldn't ever do anything dangerous at all, and you shouldn't even have a sip of wine. You shouldn't eat, salami. All I want to eat when I'm pregnant is salami. So that's near and dear to my heart. And because you're doing,
I got you salami right here.
It for another person, but at the same time, you're saying, well, I'm still the owner of my body.
Yeah.
Surely I can eat some salami. Surely I can have a half glass of wine. But that ends at a certain point because you're not the same. It's not the same body, and you're not sharing a mind.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I have an idea. This was not my idea. Wish I could say it was my idea. This idea is Brett Hall's idea. I just spent time with him. He's the science educator in Miami. He's like the consigliere to Naval and David Deutsch. He's a super good guy. This is his idea. I wish I could claim it as my own. So, he's doing this like really weird, creepy stuff on the computer with like taking the numbers and putting them in baskets. And
that's their work. And damn near towards the end, that's about as much as we know about it. They sit behind a computer, there's a bunch of numbers, and they got to put it into a box or a basket or a category, and that's about as much as we know. That's what they do day in, day out. And remember, because they're innies, once the workday ends, they hit the elevator, and boom, right there, it's 9 a.m. the next day.
So this is his idea, and I think it's totally profound. He thinks that the outies are somebody else's innie, or that the outies are somebody else's outie. He thinks that so, because you notice it, do you think it takes place in the United States?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, some things definitely happened to change. The landscape looks like the Midwest. The houses look like mid-century Midwestern houses, right?
That's a whole aspect of where is this? Because it's supposed to be in modern time, but there's all this technology and everything's really weird. They have stuff with postmarks that's not part of anywhere in America. So the question of where is this actually happening is a big question in the show.
Right. The cars, but there's that map that you see where it says it's a map of Kier.
Correct.
So it's either some kind of big incorporated town named after this person, or there's been some kind of political change, and Kier is its own.
It's like it's an alternative future.
Yes.
And that's what they call it, the place that they live, Kier, after they're basically the founder of the company, and they are their god, basically. Shout out to Funk Master General. Welcome to the party with the $2 make you hello. Thank you so very, very much, sir. Always a pleasure to see you. That's 2 out of 10, guys. 8 more, and I'm on the floor. Thank you. So very, very much. Let's be nice, guys. Let's
So
be
I
nice.
think there's another explanation.
Okay.
Even when they look at the maps, the
Yeah.
maps are only. I think that Brett, it's onto something. My personal speculation is that. Okay, so this is so confusing because you get to meta layers of innies and outies. So I think he's doing something because they say he's on the cusp of some great discovery.
Cold Harbor, right? Is the name of his
something,
project?
yeah, something like that.
Cold Harbor.
Yeah. So
put it in the chat if you do not want me to talk about what Cold Harbor is.
yeah, I think that he is going to figure out something that the outies are going to use to figure out if they're in a kind of the same kind of situation that they've been severed.
So if there's a third level, in other words.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's.
And in that case, Kier would be a kind of reality that just exists within Lumon.
That's
or something
correct.
like Lumon.
That's correct.
And that's why.
I love how all the captions always spell it's Lumen, Lumon, but everybody says Lumen, and then the auto captions always correct it to Lumen, and she's specifically saying Lumon, and it spells it with an A.
That just exists within Lumon.
That's
or something
correct.
like Lumon.
That's correct.
And that's why you never see any other season but winter, right?
Yeah, you never.
It's like Narnia.
Yeah, it's like they're
it's always
kind of
winter
stuck
and never
there.
Christmas. Yeah.
Could be. And another aspect of it not being in somewhere where we recognize that it is always winter is that part of the illusion that maybe you would have a stronger desire to go outside if it's nice out. Whereas if you're driving into a gloomy day every day, then you're perfectly fine in the heat.
So it's interesting to me how there are so many ethical dilemmas and moral problems that come about from the very idea of being severed in the first place.
Yeah.
Who owns your body? And I thought that the part when he goes to Bert's house, or when
Yes, and he meets his husband.
He meets his husband.
Yes,
and he says,
I'll see what they're saying. And I'll fill you in with whatever needs to be filled in.
That the reason that he retired, basically killed his innie, is because he thinks he's going to go to hell, and he wanted some part of him to go to heaven.
Yep.
So this guy thinks he's going to go to hell, but some part of him wants to go to heaven. So he is a bad guy in general. But when he's severed, as Peter Boghossian was saying before, they become different people. And so he really relished in that idea because he's like, in the outside world, I'm a bad person. At least if I get severed, there's a part of me that's still going to be innocent. And it blossoms into other stuff, but a very, very again, a very dark notion that this is the only way that I'll have any type of acceptance. And as a Christian, the only way that any part of me would God accept me into heaven. It's so annoying that all the captions everywhere say outie. Where we at? Diving back in. All right. But so the notion of these splitting personality, different parts of yourself, but still yourself, that you can find redemption in innocence.
He thinks he's going to go to hell, and he wanted some part of him to go to heaven.
Yep.
So I thought that was incredibly profound and yet completely misguided. But then again, I'm not a particularly religious man, to say the least. So
I think that's a tough question.
Yeah.
Because we've been talking about creating an innie as creating another person.
Correct.
So if you think that persons have souls, then it does actually follow that if you say, okay, if I'm creating an innie and that's another person,
then they get a soul, and that soul is innocent.
They're going to have it wouldn't be unreasonable to say that they have a different soul than I do. But if you say, okay, we have the same soul, then in a sense, you're not necessarily creating a different person, in which case maybe severance is okay. And you're just torturing a part of yourself instead.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Can you consent to torturing a part of yourself that you don't remember?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, it's such a bizarre question.
Yeah.
That is a bizarre question. Let's go back to our poll. Is it moral to get severed in the first place? 80% of you saying no. So let's see this one. What was the actual...
of yourself that you don't remember.
Can you consent Can you consent to torturing yourself if you won't remember? And let's see. Well, let's see how that plays out first. And then we'll bring it back to the previous one.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, it's such a bizarre question.
Yeah.
I do think.
Can you consent to torturing yourself if you're... It's tough because I think, let's say you were tortured before. I think a big part of it is not knowing what you're signing up for. So in the same way that, you wouldn't want to... Oh, perfect example. That show 60 Days In. I mean, a while back, I binged the hell out of it. I was telling you guys about it. And originally, when I'd heard about it, I thought it was just like a typical jail documentary. They just show, oh, this person's in jail for that. This is what's going on. Da, 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 da. But it's not at all. It's a completely different type of show where they have like 3 or 4 volunteers that are just normal people who volunteer to go undercover into the jail. Now, remember what this lady, Isabel Reinhardt, she's assistant professor at the University of Austin. And she was talking about how the innies don't have a way to retire. They don't have that option. And in the in 60 Days In, you have a secret signal where you can get out. But if they didn't have that and you were just signing up to be in jail for 60 days and you didn't know what jail was, then I think it could be argued that, well, I didn't know what I was signing up for. So it's not really fair to not have a way out. Very interesting.
Remember.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, it's such a bizarre question.
Yeah.
I think
consent doesn't make sense there anymore.
Like
you could just say, is it right? Is it right or wrong? Consent isn't really part of that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Why not? I think that's dependent. The consent is definitely, because it's certainly not wrong to torture yourself if you want to torture yourself. And whether or not you remember it is almost irrelevant if you understand that. I don't know.
So yeah, I do think you're creating 2 separate people.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I just caught up in the Christian.
Hey, shout out to Matthew King. Welcome to the party. So again, if you have not seen the show, the basic premise is that there is a procedure that can be done that basically puts a chip in your head that works like the remote in Adam Sandler's Click, that severs your consciousness and you become 2 different people. So when you go into work, your outie version of yourself switches off. And so that version is basically, instead of going into work at 9 a.m. and being there all day and then leaving at 5, you walk in at 8 a.m. and it immediately is 5 p.m. You've done your work. You get to go back home. And the other side of that being the innie is at work. They walk, they wake up at work. It's 9 a.m. They do their whole day. Then 5 p.m. comes. They go to the elevator and boom, right back. And they're in the next day of work at 9 a.m. And so it's the 2 versions of yourself. And questioning, is that any version of yourself that always stays at work, is that a slave? Is that ethical for that person to exist? Is it ethical to create that person? All that kind of stuff. So again, if you're familiar with Click or the White Christmas episode of Black Mirror, or what was the movie that M169 brought up? Multiplicity, all that kind of stuff. Welcome to the party.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I just caught up in the Christian thing. Like they would have to kind of be born again. They would have to accept Jesus or whatever the paradigm is. So you can't really say that.
Well, no, you mean to go to heaven?
Yeah.
Depends on your denomination, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm Episcopalian. We're very casual. We let everybody go to heaven.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I hope my 4 pets are in there.
Yeah.
Do you have any other reflections about the show, or things you've been thinking about, or things it relates to?
Yeah. Well, so since I'm a classicist, like I said, I think about everything in terms of ancient literature. And there's so much about the innies trying to figure out who they are. When you see Mark figuring out that he's married and that he had a wife and all these things, it makes me think a lot about Oedipus, the most famous Greek tragedy by Sophocles. So
speaking of Oedipus, let's see what's going on with Oedipus. get a little refresher.
Oedipus.
Oh.
Of all the names we associate with Greek literature, the most famous belong to the great heroes. Odysseus, known for taking 10 years to sail 500 nautical miles. Hercules, for great feats of strength like killing his helpless family. Achilles, for having the dumbest weakness since the aliens in Signs. And of course, who can forget Oedipus Rex, the poor bastard with the entirety of Freudian psychology to serve as his memorial. And since there's nothing I like better than Freudian psychology, today we explore Sophocles' classic tragedy, Oedipus the King. Oedipus, king of Thebes, has had a pretty fascinating life so far. For starters, he was abandoned as a baby, then taken by a servant and delivered to the childless king and queen of Corinth, who raised baby Oedipus as their own. Unfortunately, as Oedipus grew up, he caught wind of a rumor that he wasn't precisely the king and queen's real son, which was rather disheartening for the enterprising young prince. In order to clear the whole mess up, he did what all Greek heroes do on their off days and consulted the oracle at Delphi. The oracle, however, didn't really tell him what he wanted to hear. Well, in fact, rather than answering his question, the oracle instead told young Oedipus that it was his destiny to kill his own father and then marry his mother. Now,
So, if you're not familiar, yes, this is the story of Oedipus, who was brought into a family and then told by the oracle, essentially, that you're going to kill your own father and marry your own mother. Let's hey, chill with the spoilers. Chill with the spoilers.
Now, if there's one thing we've learned from Greek tragedies, it's that oracles are never wrong, just on occasion misleading as hell. So Oedipus is like, geez, no way, and immediately runs away from Corinth in an effort to escape his disgusting fate. However, as we know, the king and queen of Corinth aren't his real parents, so really this can only go downhill from here. Spoiler alert, that's exactly what it does. Now, while Oedipus is on the road out from Corinth, he runs into a procession of some sort that quite rudely shoves him out of the way. So, of course, like any sane man, he succumbs to ancient Greek road rage and proceeds to slaughter the entire procession without ever learning their identities. This being a time when casual murder was not only overlooked but often actively encouraged, nobody really seems to care, except for the single survivor who's guaranteed not to factor into this story in any way. Spoiler warning, he factors into the story. So Oedipus continues his wanderings and comes to the great city of seven-gated Thebes, not to be confused with 100-gated Thebes, one-time capital of Egypt. And that's not the only thing it has in common with Egypt. In fact, the most prominent similarity that Oedipus notices is that this Thebes also has a giant but ugly sphinx in front of it. The only difference there is that this sphinx is both alive and hungry. So the sphinx is all like, none may pass my gate unless they answer my riddle. And Oedipus is all like, challenge accepted. So the sphinx asks him,
Shout out to How I Met Your Mother. One day, you guys will see the brilliance.
may pass my gate unless they answer my riddle. And Oedipus is all like, challenge accepted. So the Sphinx asks him her now classic riddle, what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at lunch, and 3 in the evening? And Oedipus, clearly a man before his time, answers with the first Google search result and says, it's man. The Sphinx, who is up until this point accustomed to being the brightest person in the room, can't take the pressure of being outsmarted and hurls herself off the nearest cliff. It's kind of like what college freshmen at Ivy Leagues do if the cliff were made of booze. Anyway, the citizens of Thebes are mega grateful to Oedipus for getting rid of their kitty problem, and Jocasta, the queen of Thebes, offers to marry him, making him the king. This she can do because her previous husband, King Laius, has unfortunately been mysteriously murdered while out of town, along with almost his entire entourage. Observant listeners may note that this event bears a certain resemblance to prior actions on Oedipus's part. These observant viewers have proved themselves to be far more observant than Oedipus, who immediately accepts the cushy kingship job in Jocasta's hand in marriage. No.
Who or why and how could this go wrong? Shout out to Funk Master General with the 5. Where's my applause there? 5 gifted memberships. Thank you. So very, very much. Remember, if you were given a membership, make sure to not only join the free Discord, but let me know so that I can give you the permissions for the entire thing, including the after party. And we are doing a movie night tonight, so come on through. Oh, and Funk Master, again, thank you so very, very much, sir, and including the gifted memberships, that's 4 out of 10, 1 more, and we are halfway there. Thank you so very, very much, sir, very much appreciated.
Prove themselves to be far more observant than Oedipus, who immediately accepts the cushy kingship job in Jocasta's hand in marriage, no questions asked. Now here's where the story starts to get interesting, and technically where it really begins. So Oedipus is now the king of Thebes, which seems like it'd be great, but he's hardly been king 10 minutes before the kingdom starts collapsing around him. His city is immediately stricken with an unspecified plague that devastates the population, so he sends Jocasta's brother Creon to the oracle at Delphi to find out what can be done about it. Spoiler warning, this is neither the first nor the last time an oracle will be consulted in this play. Anyway, when Creon gets back, he reports that the oracle has said that the sickness is being caused by a pollution on the land in the form of the man who murdered King Laius. The plague will be cured when they banish whoever that happens to be. Oedipus is all for this plan, but there's just one problem. Nobody knows who killed the old king. Well, except for us. Spoiler warning, by the way. See, the citizens of Thebes would have investigated his murder, but before they could, that pesky Sphinx showed up and trapped them all in the city. Hey, hold on. I thought the city was called Seven-Gated Thebes. Why didn't they just leave through one of the other 6 gates? Whatever. Guess they must have not liked the old king that much. Anyway, so Oedipus starts going all detective on this case's ass. He is determined to bring this criminal to justice. And again, his first order of business is consulting the hell out of an oracle. Public service announcement. Consulting an oracle is not good detective work, folks. It's a good way to get really confused and murder your family members.
That's why we don't have them anymore.
Oh, spoiler warning. So, Oedipus talks to this blind dude, Tiresias, who's a seer/freelance oracle who, luckily for them, happened to be in the neighborhood. So Oedipus is like, tell me who killed the old king. And Tiresias is like, okay, man, you really don't want me to tell you that. And Oedipus is like, what? Yes, I do. That's why I asked you. Tiresias is like, if you think this is a good idea, you're blinder than I am. And Oedipus is like, tell me, damn it. Did Creon put you up to this? And Tiresias is like, Christ, fine. The pollution on this land is you. By which I mean you killed the old king. Hope you're happy. Oedipus, like any sane, rational ruler wouldn't do, absolutely refuses to believe Tiresias, instead believing that Creon is trying to spread evil rumors about him in order to steal his throne. How did he come to that conclusion, you might ask? Oedipus and Creon get into a big argument about who killed the king, who's telling the truth, what the hell is happening in general, all that good stuff. In the end, Jocasta busts in like, ladies, stop fighting, you're both pretty, and sends them to their respective rooms. Oedipus is like,
remember, that's Oedipus's wife now.
this big mean oracle said I killed the king, and it really hurt my feelings. And Jocasta's like, oracles? Ha! Oracles are full of crap. Why, this one time, an oracle came to Laius' court and told him, get this, that he'd be murdered by his own son. Well, he fixed that problem up real good. As soon as the kid was born, we stapled his ankles together and abandoned him on some mountain somewhere.
Remember in the beginning of the story how Oedipus was not the real child of the people who raised him.
So that sure as hell never wound up happening. Ding, ding, ding. A big shout out to all you observant viewers who are gradually putting the pieces together. So Oedipus is like, yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's not like I could have killed Laius anyway. Why, the only thing I ever killed was a fancy-looking procession of people while on the road to Thebes, and there's no way that... Oh... shit.
So part one of you will kill your father and marry your mother checked off the box. A arrow with another $2. Thank you so very, very much. And of course, a treat for Morty. That's halfway there, guys. Halfway. Thank you so very, very much. We need to get me swole.
So yeah,
Thank
for those in the audience who haven't already pieced this particular fustercluck together, a messenger shows up out of nowhere to conveniently summarize the rest of the plot for you. And to add contrivance to contrivance, the messenger is accompanied also by the sole survivor of Oedipus's attack on King Laius' procession. And he's only there because that same survivor was actually the servant who took baby Oedipus out from the city in the first place and delivered him to this very messenger. What are the odds? Who cares? Let's watch Oedipus's life get ruined.
So in case you're not caught up, baby is born. And an oracle says you're gonna kill your is gonna kill his father and marry his mother. So they send him away, and then being away, he hears the same story. You're gonna kill your father and marry your mother, but he's thinking it's his adoptive parents. So he again gets the fuck out of Dodge, only to show up and kill the guy who's actually his father. Shout out to Punk Master General again. So thank the Overlord for giving us cheeseburgers. Morty, look at me. Do you like cheeseburgers? Because they do, and they appreciate you for it. Thank you. Oh yeah, and pizza. My goodness gracious. He's loving it. Thank you so very, very much, guys. That's 7 out of 10. Amazing. Thank you so very, very much. Arrow said, Leda being violated by Zeus in swan form was brutal. Yeah, the Greeks, Greeks did their shit.
Many years ago, Laius and Jocasta sent a servant off with their infant son to abandon him on some barren mountain somewhere. But the servant instead felt pity for the baby and handed him off to a messenger, the very messenger telling the story, in fact, who brought the child to Corinth to be raised by the king and queen like a higher maintenance Clark Kent. And that same child was none other than our hero, Oedipus Rex, who, in summation...
Oh, I did the math wrong. We got a new sponsor. Our boy, Funk Master General, the sole sponsor of our Swole stream. Thank you so very, very much, sir.
Messenger telling the story, in fact, who brought the child to Corinth to be raised by the king and queen like a higher maintenance Clark Kent. And that same child was none other than our hero, Oedipus Rex, who, in summation, unknowingly killed his dad and banged his mom. This news is upsetting for all involved. Jocasta
Not surprisingly.
immediately kills herself, and Oedipus has a world-class freakout that culminates in him stabbing his own eyes out and running off into the night. And really, if we were in his situation, would any of us have done anything different? Have fun pondering that.
I would hope so. Jane says it's like church. I mean, basically, it was church before church. These are the types of stories that were there. So that is the story of Oedipus Rex, and well, there's a lot of. Okay, well, I guess they don't get into the brutality of him plucking his eyes out, but yes, killed his father, married and fucked his mother, and plucked his eyes out. So that is what we are talking about. King said, "Why does he mind that he killed his biological father? Just curious, or is it upsetting he banged his mom?" Well, both. You know, that's his father, and he killed him. Plus, the prophecy, fulfilling the prophecy is something that he actively tried not to do. So that's going to be upsetting because it's your father. But yeah, banging your mother after you've already killed your father, there ain't no coming back from that. Ain't no coming back from that.
This, the most famous Greek tragedy by Sophocles. So Oedipus, if you don't remember, is about a man, a very, very clever man. And he comes
not clever enough
to a city called Thebes, which is being attacked by the Sphinx. And he saves Thebes from the Sphinx. And he goes into the Theban city, and the Thebans say, you know, yay, you saved us. Be our king, marry our queen. And he does. And he seems like he's a pretty good ruler. And he's married to this queen Jocasta. All the Thebans start dying of plague. Oedipus is concerned. He wants to find out why. He receives an oracle that says, the reason everybody's dying of plague is that the man who killed the last king, Laius, has never been punished. So Oedipus goes out publicly and he says, we're going to find this person. And
if I knew she was going to recap the whole story, maybe we wouldn't have gone there. But either way,
nobody's going to help him. We're going to drive him out of the country. And so he starts investigating. And in the course of his investigations, he finds out that he was the murderer of Laius. And then in the course of investigating that, he finds out not only that he was the murderer of Laius, but that he was Laius's son, who was given up as a baby, exposed on a mountain. And that his wife, Jocasta, who he seems to be quite affectionate to, is actually his mother. And that their 4 children are the product of incest. So Oedipus finds all this out.
It keeps getting worse.
It keeps getting worse and worse. And he finds all this out. His Jocasta runs off and hangs herself. He runs and stabs out his eyes with the pins from her dress. And but he doesn't die. He just kind of keeps living after.
You know, like Wilson Fisk.
That, and the play ends with him being kept inside the house.
And
very Black Mirror-esque.
I think there's a lot in that play for thinking about something like Severance to say, well, what does it really mean to find out who you are? What are the stakes?
So that's the long walk. Is about identity, who you are, and how your role in the world is relevant to that.
Of figuring out the true meaning of your actions and of discovering how who you are relates to the people around you, because sometimes that's a terrible discovery.
And just at the most broad level, if you are doing this severance procedure just because you don't feel like going to work, that may not seem like the worst thing. But understanding that you are now creating a slave really changes the calculation of what that is. I'm like, Jocasta didn't hang herself. She ate burning coals. Yikes. The Greeks, eh? The Greeks. They don't call them tragedies for nothing.
You know, for Mark, who's clearly falling in love with Helly as an innie, he's also married to somebody, is I think going to put him in an awful position. Not quite as awful as Oedipus, but for me, it's always a question.
He's not married to her though.
Well, why? Because she died.
No, because why? We don't know if she's dead.
Oh, his body. Yes, you're right. The Audi Mark is.
So Audi Mark, the main original guy, had a wife that died, but she may or may not be dead. And so the question, we're talking about the Indian Audi girl that was having sex and all that stuff. The other part of the equation is that Audi Mark had a wife, no longer has a wife, but how does that affect any Mark, the work version of Mark? If Audi version of Mark has a wife, that's not any versions of Mark's wife. And they show this with a different character who they, great worker, but they're kind of losing some steam. So they make a room where his Audi's wife can come in. And that's a whole aspect about, how they've been together for a long time. Their relationship is whatever. But she comes in and she sees the innie version, the work version. And it's like meeting him for the first time. And then they have all these interactions. And it really, as she's saying, what does it mean to be who you are? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Again, Monk, Master, General. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Another 5 gifted memberships. Very, very, very much appreciated. Out sponsoring yourself, sir.
Is married to her.
Yeah.
But that's going to create a real conflict eventually. Because Mark's whole reason for creating an innie was so that he could just kind of
forget her,
destroy his life.
Yeah,
and not have to think about his wife. But once his wife is back, surely he won't want to waste that time having an innie anymore.
And there's many reasons that people might decide to get this severance procedure, but our main character, because of the fact that his wife died, he's not doing so well, and this is his way to still be productive. Because remember, those 8 hours he's at work, he's a different person, almost literally, or maybe literally. He's in the same body, but he's a different person, and so he's still stuck in this grieving, but it's not affecting his work.
So that was interesting. I never thought about that parallel before. Remember that scene when they're in the restaurant and she's,
hey, shout out to Zippy, DSM Lee. Welcome. So I torture myself and then forget and then do it again. Going to our poll, can you consent to torturing yourself if you won't remember it? And we're pretty split. 56 to 44. That's an interesting one. Tell me why you think you can, or rather you should be able to, or you shouldn't be able to consent to torturing yourself, and how the memory of it falls into that. Welcome to the party, Zabay. So here they're talking about, he's about to talk about a scene, and the implication of the scene is that same girl who was playing around with her Audi version, going into work and pretending to be the Anya version. Her Audi version meets the Audi version of the dude, and we don't really know what it means, but it's a very odd scene, and I think they're going to talk about everything relevant here.
That parallel before.
Oh, we're getting there.
Remember that scene when they're in the restaurant and she's looking at him and she comes over to him?
Mm-hmm.
God, that was like, she is such a good actress.
She's so scary.
Like she just had intense familiarity in her eyes. She was so familiar with him.
Yeah.
So we have the guy, Mark, who, again, he's severed. So the only place he knows this lady is when the other side of his brain is on. Yet out in the real world, this lady's not supposed to know him at all because of the same reason. Yet she starts talking to him and she knows him, and she can, as he's saying, you can see the familiarity in her eyes.
Yeah.
And he was like,
yeah,
a little creeped out by. He was like, "Who are you? Where are you?"
I think she was testing him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you think she was testing him?
Maybe. I mean, that's what it seemed like to me, that she was kind of, because it seems like she's a very careful person.
Oh, she was testing to see if he recognized her.
Yes. Because she seems like she's very careful, but she's doing this crazy thing with him, right? She's obviously being very erratic in pursuing him and pretending to be the innie. So I think that moment she was just trying to to test him to see if she's really safe.
Okay.
Yeah. So going back to what Guamsek was saying about letting the work version be out in the world or having to switch positions, and it would be more moral, it would give them a better understanding. That's precisely what they don't want. And so by doing this test, this is my speculation, this is not in the show, but along with what Peter is saying, that I think it was a test of the strength of the procedure, that she knows that he's not supposed to know who she is, even though on the inside they're buddy. And so the test is that she goes up to the outside of work version where he shouldn't know her, and then he doesn't know her. It's like, all right, this works.
So that's not how I read it at
Okay, how
all.
did you
I'm
read
not
it?
saying you're wrong. I just didn't read that.
Yeah.
So I think
my
that his perception of
Oh, my bad. I'm with her on this one.
that scene,
Mhm.
of that engagement, that interaction was, oh no, they're on to me.
Yes, that's what he thinks.
That's what he thinks.
Yeah.
But I have a completely different motivation for her.
Okay.
They're on to me. I disagree. Because there's no, I at that point of the story, and this is getting more into plot stuff, but also speculation, so no spoilers. It doesn't. So if you're, let's say you work at this job, you've gotten severed, and you're just living your life, you're out to dinner someday, and someone comes up to you and acts like they really know you, and you're like, who the fuck are you? I'm not sure if I would immediately go to, oh, the people at my job are testing me. Why would you make that connection? We, as the viewers, know that we're watching a show about work, but he's just out living his life. So I don't know if he would necessarily suspect that the company has anything to do with some random chick. Now, it just so happened that he did see her earlier on, but it was just like a circumstantial cross, and they didn't have a conversation or anything. So he has seen her before, but they never met before unless they were their work versions. So I don't know why he would think that the guy would think that he's being tested.
Yes, that's what he thinks.
Well,
That's what he thinks.
Yeah.
But I have a completely different motivation for her.
Okay.
I think she's in love with him.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, you think
But
so? I
she's
think,
also
no,
scared
Her Audi. I
Her
think
Audi
the
is.
Audi is in love with.
and is jealous of her innie.
Right. So the Audi version, as you may have picked up as we're talking about it, this girl is not just another worker at the company. I won't give away, Chicada Bardo or something, Chica Bardo, something Bardo. But this girl that we're talking about, I won't spoil anything, but she's not just some other worker. So she has reasons to want to see, the what's going on with the company itself, not just the work that they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And so that's why she's able to be in work, not as her work self. And so she's also able to see what's going on with her work self. And she sees her work self be a different person. And she's like, I can't be that person. You all right? Well, he's choking over here. You need another treat, I think. The fact that he is, where was I? Oh, the fact that she's able to see that her work version, her innie, is living in certain areas a life that she wants to live. She gets jealous, and so that's why she is, inserting herself where she shouldn't be, because she loves work version dude named Mark.
Scared
Her Audi. I think
Audi
the
is.
Audi is in love with.
and is
his
jealous of
innie.
her innie.
I think that's correct.
Yes. But I think her Audi's also scared that she's going to be caught, right? Because she watches that video of her innie and him kissing,
Yeah.
but she does that in secret. And then she pretends to be her
Did she do that in secret, or was there just not anybody else around? Those are two different things.
innie and has sex with him. And I think she wants to make sure that nobody's going to figure out what's going on. I think, because she has all this pressure from her father, and from the higher ups in the company.
So let's go into the fact that the Audi version went into the work version as the work version, pretending to be the work girl. She was actually the Audi girl. That's when they had sex. And there is, again, we're going into speculation. I don't know anything about this. Neither does anybody in the show, except Ben Stiller. There's speculation that the time that Audi girl and any dude, when they had sex, that she actually got pregnant. And so that begs the question, what is the identity of the child? Because remember, it's the same body. Even though you're splitting your mind, it's always your body. And so if that would be like, I don't even have a good analogy, but you just wake up one day, you've never had sex with anybody as far as you know, and you're pregnant. How does the outie version then explain that? And how does the innie version get to understand that? Very difficult. Zibby says, envy and jealousy drives humanity. Comrade, you need to get rid of it. But okay, but what are we going to do with all of the women and feminists? I said, it freaks me out knowing how much I sacrifice to the machine. You can say that again.
So I think in a way it's kind of like coming back to a scene where you've done something wrong to make sure nobody's talking about you. I think that's the impression I got from her.
So I was thinking like,
Okay, I see what she's saying. So she's saying, first step was she went into work as her outie, had sex with any mark. Then, because she realized that, so previously she saw any herself and any mark getting along, got jealous. So then she used her outie self, went in, had sex with any mark. Then that's when we see them after that in the restaurant. And so this woman here is saying that the outie chick is checking up on outie Mark in the same way that you might return to the scene of a crime. Okay, an interesting theory.
Talking about you. I think that's the impression I got from her.
So I was thinking like, what would I do if I were in that situation?
Wait, which one? If you were Helly, I hope you wouldn't be.
No. If I were, yeah. So that's the other thing. So if I were severed and I were inside and I'm like, I hate my life. I'm in love with this woman. I don't know what to do. How am I ever going to know it's her? If I were absolutely positive it was her,
yeah,
then I would like go super close and whisper something like, "We need a code word."
Yeah.
Because I don't know what else
That's a good idea.
I don't know what else you could do.
Yeah, but which makes sense in hindsight as you're watching the show and you understand that somebody could do that. But as the way it's presented, I mean, to us as the viewers and certainly to the workers, is that it's not possible to get onto that floor unless you are your any version. So again, this is coming from an outside perspective of not being actually in there. You wouldn't necessarily think, oh, I've got to make sure you're the any version of yourself. Because if you were the outie version of yourself, then you wouldn't be here.
Yeah. To make sure it was always her.
Yeah, I mean, and then he said, like, you gave away everything. Like, you gave away, but she said, I didn't give away anything. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
So,
meaning when they had sex.
I don't know. Does it relate to any other? Like, I mean, it's
so unique. It's so unique.
Well, you mean in terms of like ancient material?
Yeah, or even ancient material, or because it's such a bizarre. I can't imagine it does because it's just so weird.
I mean, it doesn't really, though. There is an example. There's a famous example of a code word.
Yeah.
If you read the Odyssey, which all of our students here had to read this fall,
at University of Austin.
At the University of Austin, yes.
The Odyssey.
Odysseus comes home.
All right, let's take a little detour on the Odyssey.
So,
oh, sorry.
The Odyssey, or as I like to identify it, Troy's Story 2, is something of a sequel to the Iliad, chronicling the various happily ever afters, or otherwise, of our favorite Greek heroes. But really, what it's mostly about is how much the universe hates Odysseus and wants him to suffer for as long as humanly possible. Seriously, in the 10 years it takes him to get from Troy to Ithaca, this guy gets put through more crap than a 20-pound bag of industrial-strength Huggies sized for incontinent bulls. So the Odyssey begins with our hero, who's been stranded on an island for 7 years with no company other than a gorgeous, lonely, immortal goddess by the name of Calypso. Terrible. Right? Well, actually, it does kind of suck for him.
Shout out to the Overly Sarcastic Productions. I should have put these in the description, but I will put them in the chat.
because what he wants more than anything is to get back home to Ithaca, specifically back to his lovely wife Penelope and his now adult son Telemachus, who Odysseus hasn't seen since he was a baby. And in fact, the story initially focuses on these two. See, since almost everyone thinks Odysseus is dead, Penelope is now widely considered to be Ithaca's most eligible bachelorette, and as a result, she's gotten more than 100 potential suitors queuing up in her castle, demanding that she pick one of them to marry her and become the new king. Her son Telemachus is none too pleased about the suitors throwing a never-ending frat party in his house. Now,
Yeah, if any of you guys got a single mother and she was bringing a lot of men around, I'm sure you can relate.
Become the new king. Her son Telemachus is none too pleased about the suitors throwing a never-ending frat party in his house. Now, by the time our story begins, most of the gods have decided that poor Odysseus has suffered enough at this point. So Athena disguises herself as a dude, drops down into Ithaca, and then tells Telemachus, "Hey, your dad's alive. Maybe you should go try and find out where he is." So Telemachus, who's a pretty smart kid, immediately figures out that this dude is actually a god, and thus takes her at her word. But before he leaves, Telemachus tries and fails to kick the suitors out of his house. And they're like, "Ooh, his widow baby
You're not my dad!"
Before he leaves, Telemachus tries and fails to kick the suitors out of his house. And they're like, "Ooh, is widow baby Telemachus gonna fight us?" And Telemachus is like, "Shut up! I'm gonna find my dad and he's gonna beat you up!" So Telemachus secretly assembles a small loyal crew, acquires a ship, and sets off in search of news. The first place he goes is Pylos, home to King Nestor. So Telemachus is like, "Hey, do you have any idea where my father is?" And Nestor's like, "Well, let me think back to when I last saw him. All right, it was 9 years ago during the Trojan War. Agamemnon and Menelaus were arguing, which had split the army down the middle, so Odysseus, Diomedes, Menelaus, and I took our armies and left. Although Odysseus did turn back to head off Agamemnon, and that's the last time I saw him. I don't know what happened after that, though. Maybe you should go talk to Menelaus, see what he has to say about the matter." So Telemachus goes off to Sparta and meets with Menelaus and Helen, now happily remarried, and Telemachus is like, "Yeah, can you tell me where my dad is?" And Menelaus is like,
Very true. In Penelope's case, she wasn't bringing them around. The simps were just simping. Fair point. Fair point for the ladies.
with Menelaus and Helen, now happily remarried, and Telemachus is like, "Yeah, can you tell me where my dad is?" And Menelaus is like, "First, let me tell you my story. Okay, so I was marooned on this tiny island off the coast of Egypt, right? When this goddess shows up, and she's like, 'Hey, you should talk to my dad, Proteus. He'll tell you how to get out of here.' So I went off and tackled the guy, but he starts shape-shifting, right? But he can't shake me that easily. So we got tired of that pretty quick, and he was like, 'Screw it, what do you want?' And I was like, 'Do your thing, oh god of telling me stuff.' And he's like, 'Fine, you're stranded here because you forgot to sacrifice to Zeus before you left. Also, Ajax the Lesser drowned, Agamemnon's dead, and Odysseus is stranded on Calypso's island.' And Telemachus is like, 'That's literally all I needed to hear.' But back in Ithaca, the suitors have learned that Telemachus left to find news of Odysseus, and they find this very offensive for some reason, so they start plotting to kill him as soon as he gets back.
They're like, nah, I want that queen pie.
Man, Penelope sure knows how to pick him. Now, on Zeus's orders, Calypso finally lets Odysseus go, so he heads off homeward on a raft. But Poseidon, who's holding a grudge against him for reasons that'll be explained later, notices that he's trying to escape and whips up a huge storm in an effort to drown him. But Odysseus is far too badass to let a little thing like drowning get him down, and he's doing pretty well for himself when yet another goddess shows up, gives him a magic anti-drowning scarf, and then vanishes. And Odysseus is like, why would I need this when I have a perfectly serviceable raft? Okay then. So Odysseus swims all the way to nearby Phaeacia, drags himself into the forest, and passes out. So Athena, always looking out for Odysseus, zips over to the city and tells the princess Nausicaa, "Hey, you should go down to the forest." And she's like, "Great idea." So she heads over to the forest and finds Odysseus, just like Athena planned. So Nausicaa brings him back to her parents, the king and queen, and Odysseus tells them the story of how he came to be stranded on Calypso's island. So it's just after the Greeks have sacked Troy, and Odysseus advises the others to quit while they're ahead and sail back to Greece. But of course they don't listen to him, and by next morning they're overrun by a retaliatory force. Odysseus and some of the others take the ships to escape, but Zeus is angry at the Greeks for their poor sportsmanship and sends a huge storm to blow them off course. Odysseus and his crew are swept far out to sea, and that's when the weird stuff starts happening.
Just now is the weird stuff starting to happen.
So first, they wash up at the land of the Lotus Eaters, which is populated by these really mellow dudes who eat lotuses.
Shout out to Sargon of Akkad.
Anyone who eats a lotus mellows out and wants to stay there forever, so of course most of his shipmates eat them, and Odysseus has to drag his idiot crew back to the ships by force.
Put one in the chat if you would try a lotus.
So they set out again, only to wash up on the island of the Cyclopses, where they see a nice-looking cave surrounded by delicious-looking flocks of sheep. Unfortunately, the cave is home to a large, hungry Cyclops by the name of Polyphemus, who seals them in with an enormous rock, kills 2 of the crew, and then falls asleep. Since they can't kill him without trapping themselves in the cave, they bide their time until the next night, when Odysseus gets Polyphemus drunk, introduces himself as nobody, and then when Polyphemus passes out, they take a large wooden stake and stab out his eye. So Polyphemus is like,
"Ah, help, nobody blinded me."
And all his Cyclops friends are like,
Yeah, you're hilarious. Polyphemus, is nobody stealing your flocks too?
So Polyphemus opens the cave to check, and Odysseus and remaining crew bolt for the ships. Then Odysseus, remember the wisest of the Greeks, takes it into his head to taunt the Cyclops. So he's like, "Hey, guess what, dumbass? My name's not nobody. It's Odysseus." And
beast.
Ephemus is like,
Dad, Odysseus gouged out my eye.
so funny story. All Cyclopses are children of Poseidon. So Poseidon hears about this and he's like, oh, really? Time for some disproportionate retribution. So
You know gods. They be doing that.
after that point, he starts trying to make Odysseus' journey home just as difficult as godly possible. So after that little adventure, they land on the Aeolian island, where the king very nicely gives them a magic leather pouch full of wind to speed them on their way home. But he can't give Odysseus a break just yet. They're maybe 10 feet off the coast of Ithaca when his idiot crew decides that the magic bag has gold in it and busts it open. The resulting hurricane sweeps them all the way back to the Aeolian island. So Odysseus is like, hey, got another one of those magic wind bags? But the king's like, not for you, dude. You've got to be super cursed to have that bad luck. Get off my island. So next, they arrive on the Lastrygonian island, populated entirely by cannibal giants. When they start eating the majority of Odysseus' crew, Odysseus and the other survivors get out of there as fast as humanly possible. Next, on this mythological island world tour, they come to the Aeaean island, where Circe, the daughter of Helios, lives.
Not that Circe. And so again, the point here being that just Odysseus is trying to get his, trying to accomplish his goal and just finding obstacle after obstacle after obstacle.
Circe is a sorceress, and some wicked hankering for bacon makes her take it into her head to turn Odysseus' rapidly dwindling crew into pigs. Odysseus learns of their tragic swinification and resolves to rescue them. So Hermes gives Odysseus some anti-magic drugs so that Circe won't be able to enchant him. You know, for someone who the gods supposedly hate, Odysseus sure does seem to get a lot of help from them. So Circe's like, here, have some enchanted booze. And Odysseus is like, awesome, drinks it, fails to turn into a pig, and then draws a sword on her. So she's like, wait, I'm a mage, I have like 2 hit points. And he's like, then I suggest you turn them back before I have to whittle that number down to 0. So she does, and then they all chillax on the island for like a year. So then Odysseus is like, yeah, we should probably be getting back. And Circe's like, well, fine with me, but first you gotta go talk to Tiresias. I mean, he's the one who knows how to get you home. Oh yeah? Where can I find him? He's dead. So Odysseus and crew sail down to Hades. They do this wacky ghost summoning ritual, which ends up attracting a few other ghosts they weren't looking for. And then Tiresias shows up. He's like, what's up, Odysseus? Poseidon's determined to screw you over, but you all might make it back as long as you don't harm Helios' pet cows that can be found on Thrinacia. If you do, though, your entire crew will die and you'll be home, like, super late. And Odysseus is like,
Don't do
cool,
it.
you heard the man, folks. No hurting the cows. Then Odysseus has a little touching reunion with the ghosts of all his now dead Greek war buddies, like Agamemnon, very grumpy at being dead, Achilles and Patroclus, now hetero death partners, and great Ajax. Then Odysseus sails out of Hades and back to Aeaea, where Circe maps out the route back to Ithaca, which for some reason is extremely densely populated by monsters. So first, they find the island of the Sirens, who sing so beautifully that anyone who hears them will be entranced, jump off the boat, and swim to their deaths. So the crew block their ears with beeswax and keep rowing, but Odysseus is really determined to hear their song, so he has them tie him to the mast so he can listen without doing anything stupid. The Sirens are like, and Odysseus is like, release me, I must hear their dulcet tones up close. And his crew is like, what? So they get out of earshot of the Sirens, only to encounter the monsters Scylla and Charybdis. So Scylla is one ugly piece of work.
Well, and again, I mean, Odysseus has made some choices.
She's a 6-headed monster at the top of a giant craggy cliff whose heads reach all the way down to the ocean to devour any unfortunates who happen to drift too close. Charybdis is like a combination garbage disposal and malfunctioning garbage disposal that sucks in the ocean and then spits it back out again. So, as they're trying to find a way to sail between the two without running into either the cliff or Charybdis, Scylla eats 6 of his crew members. On the bright side, this means her mouths are full, so she can't eat any more of them. So Odysseus and crew take the opportunity to gun it between them. They finally come across Thrinacia, more easily pronounced as the Island of the Sun, which
Finally. Shout out to Funk Master General coming through again, out sponsoring himself with another $2 making you holler. Where are we? So it says 7, but we got 2 gifted. So one more, guys, one more, and I'm on the floor. Funkmaster General out sponsoring himself again. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very, very much, sir. So Odysseus finally getting to where he's going.
Opportunity to gun it between them. They finally come across Thrinacia, more easily pronounced as the Island of the Sun, where, despite Odysseus' prophecy-based protests, they land and rest for the night. But then, Zeus strands them on the island for more than a month. At this point, the food
These fucking gods, bro.
Circe gave them starts to run out, and Eurylochus, a somewhat mutinous crew member who's inexplicably survived everything up till this point, is like, hey, what if we sacrificed one of these lovely golden cows to the gods? We'd get to
No cows!
eat it and leave the island. And Odysseus is like, damn it, what did Tiresias say? And Eurylochus is like, oh wait, too late, I seem to have killed one. So when they finally set sail, Zeus hits the ship with lightning. The boat explodes, the entire crew dies, and
All right, that was on y'all. They told you, no cows.
Odysseus is left clinging to a single timber from the boat, silently contemplating where everything went wrong. Then, adding insult to injury, Zeus sends a wind to blow Odysseus back to Charybdis, who eats the rest of the boat. A few hours later, when Charybdis pukes up the timber, Odysseus hops onto what's left of the boat and paddles the hell out of there. 9 days later, he washes up on the shore of Calypso's island, and the rest is questionably reliable history. So Odysseus finishes telling his story, and the king is like, dang, dude, want a boat? And Odysseus is like, yes, please. So the king gives him a ship and crew along with a few tons of fine treasure, and Odysseus naps all the way back to Ithaca. And you can blame him.
Shout out to equality and deference because vagina. Welcome to the party. We are actually talking with Peter Boghossian and what's her name? Isabel Reinhardt about the ethics of the show Severance. And the broader things there. So you don't have to have seen Severance, but they reference the Odyssey. So we're doing a little quick recap of what that is. Welcome to the party. For anybody, I am live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. We usually go 2.5 hours. Sometimes it will go a little bit longer, and then we go to the after party for members. It is free to join the Discord. Absolutely free. We're in there 24/7 for the text, the free text channel, but there's other stuff that is available to you if you join as a member of this channel. Welcome to the party equality.
So that's the end, right? He's made it back to Ithaca, so that's it, right? Nope, we're barely halfway through this book. Come on, give the man a break! So Odysseus is finally home in Ithaca, but there's one small problem. The suitors are still making trouble all up in his backyard. But Athena...
Damn. I mean, Penelope must have had it going on.
As always, has a plan. She magically disguises him as an old man, then goes off to Sparta to bring Telemachus home for the reunion. Odysseus, now disguised, goes off to talk to some loyal swineherd. Meanwhile, in Sparta, Athena's like, yo, Telemachus, get your butt home. So Telemachus sets sail for home, along with several gifts from Menelaus and Helen. Oh, and he's also joined by this dude, Theoclymenus, who's a prophet and a fugitive from Argos. While Odysseus and the swineherd bond, Telemachus and Theoclymenus arrive at Ithaca, and knowing that the palace isn't necessarily safe for either of them, immediately head off to the friendly neighborhood swineherd's house. So Telemachus is like, swineherd, my man, how are things up at the castle? And the swineherd is like, oh, still pretty bad. And Telemachus is like, oh, good, nothing's changed. And Odysseus is like, come on, kid, man up. Why are you letting these suitors strut around your house as if they own the place? I mean, if I were, say, the king himself, returned in secret from his travels, why, I'd strut right in there and kill all of them. And Telemachus is like, yeah, you're right. It's just too bad you're not him. And then Athena's like, hey, Odysseus, I've decided you should reveal yourself to your son, and rips the illusion off of him. So Odysseus is like, hey, son, I'm home. And Telemachus is
let's get rid of these simps.
like, Dad!
You do not have to be a member of the channel to join the Discord. You can just click the link at the top of the chat. It is free to join the Discord server itself. In order to get access to the member stuff, then you do indeed have to be a member.
It's all super heartwarming. Pause for a moment to absorb the feels. So Odysseus and Telemachus start plotting their revenge on the suitors. Meanwhile, back in the castle, Penelope and the suitors,
Mods, feel free to answer questions in the chat.
a good name for a band, by the way, learn from the swineherd that Telemachus is back, and the suitors are like, ah, damn it, our ambush has failed. Guess we better kill him right here before he can tell everyone that we tried to kill him. And Penelope is like, what? How dare you plot to kill my son? And they're like, what? No, we didn't say that. And she's like,
You definitely not getting any of that queen pussy now.
oh, okay. So the next day, Telemachus returns to the palace, while Odysseus, once again disguised as a beggar, goes into town. So
And yeah, it's like then Odysseus says, Jesus fucking Christ. A few times.
Telemachus tells Penelope about his journey, although he leaves out the part about Odysseus, and his new prophet buddy, Theoclymenus, is like, the really weird thing is, I'm getting a sense that Odysseus is here in Ithaca. And Penelope's like, man, that's just ridiculous. Meanwhile, Odysseus and the swineherd head for the palace, where the disguised Odysseus is immediately recognized by his old dog, Argos. God, this story is so adorable. Then the dog dies. Why? So beggar Odysseus begs scraps of foods from the suitors, who generally oblige, except for this one guy who throws a stool at him. So the suitors get pretty boozed up and start talking smack to Odysseus.
I did not make the name. Equality and deference because vagina is the name. So I'm going to continue to say people's names. I'm not going to call you Ty Caesar. I'm going to call you Ty Cop.
But then Telemachus is like, sleep it off, you drunks, and they all go to bed. Then Odysseus and Telemachus put their plan into motion. First, they hide all the suitors' armor and weapons upstairs. Then Odysseus goes to talk to Penelope, who he promises that before the end of the month, Odysseus will return. Hint, hint. Penelope asks beggar Odysseus if he thinks she should remarry, and Odysseus is like, no, I'm sure your husband will be back real soon to murder all your suitors. Don't sweat it. And she's like, man, I don't know. Tell you what. Tomorrow, I'll hold a contest among the suitors and anyone else who wants to try, and only a man just like Odysseus will be able to win and become my husband. And Odysseus is like, that's a great plan.
He's like, bet, I could do that. Shout out to Unwanted Foe. Welcome to the party. Thank you. So, well, I didn't say welcome. So welcome to the party. Welcome. And Thank you so very, very much for the $10. Said Queen Poom is next level, apparently. It's either from the Queen or because it's Greek. Or maybe both. Either way, they in there. Almost done here, guys. Thank you so much for not quite a side quest, because this is directly relevant to what we're talking about. But obviously I don't have too much to add. And look what we got. The SWOGO has been accomplished. Thank you so very, very much, guys. Beautiful. So we will make sure that before the end of the stream, I get down and do my push-ups, and you guys should do it as well. Let's get swole. Thank you so very, very much, gentlemen.
Only a man just like Odysseus will be able to win and become my husband. And Odysseus is like, that's a great plan. Do exactly that. So the next day, all the suitors assemble, still trying to figure out how to discreetly murder Telemachus, when Penelope unveils her secret plan. So, some context. Odysseus had this crazy strong recurve bow. It was a really cool bow, but it was a present and he never ever took it to war. So it was still locked up safely in the palace basement when he left for Troy. Now, this bow is ridiculously strong, but Odysseus never had any trouble.
Don't police my speech.
Dealing with it because, as mentioned previously, he's a badass. So Penelope's like, all right, everyone, no more delays. I'll marry the man who can string this bow most easily and then use it to shoot through these 12 axe heads. Now, this bow has a draw strength of something like 500 pounds, so none of the suitors can even bend the bow far enough to string it.
Little Mjolnir action going on up in
And then
here.
beggar Odysseus is like, hey, just for kicks, can I have a look at that bow? And the suitors are like, sure, this is gonna be good. And then, of course, Odysseus strings the bow easily. Then he casually shoots an arrow through all 12 axes, and then it's murdering time. Odysseus reveals himself in all his glory, the suitors start panicking, and Odysseus and Telemachus engage in some healthy father-son bonding by killing nearly all of them. After wreaking bloody vengeance on his enemies, and then after a nice long bath, Odysseus is finally reunited with Penelope. Then Athena persuades the entire rest of Ithaca not to take vengeance on Odysseus for killing the entire noble population, and they all lived happily ever after.
There you go. Shout out again to Overly Sarcastic Productions. Love the breakdowns here of the story of Odysseus. And again, there's a lot more to it. That's a very condensed version, but just so we have an idea of what these two are talking about. Oh my goodness. Funk Master General. Should call you Funk Master Generous. Thank you so very, very much. I think I'm gonna do some, we'll see what's good there. But shout out to Brian Turner, Chris George, Kai Mac, Fairlight Day, and Gogeta Satan. You guys now all have memberships. Make sure you click that link at the top of the chat to join the Discord and let me know that you got a membership so you have access to the full thing. Thank you so very, very much, sir. All right, let's dive back in here.
At the University of Austin, yes. Odysseus comes home, right? And he's been gone for 20 years. There's a good chance that he's not the real Odysseus, as far as Penelope and Telemachus are concerned. He's just a random guy who's come home pretending to be Odysseus, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
And so at the very end, Penelope says,
remember, this is after all that journeying, and then he finally comes back.
oh, so glad you're home. I'm going to have people bring your bed out and make it up, right? And so you can sleep now that you're back. And he's furious. And he says, what on earth do you mean move my bed out? Because Odysseus and Penelope had this secret where he had built their bed in such a way that one of the corners of the bed was an oak tree that was still rooted in the ground. So he cut down the oak, shaved it and planed it, and built the bed around that. So the bed is
craftsmanship.
Literally immovable. And it's such a nice test because Penelope, in using it to test him, is not just making sure that he's Odysseus, because she knows nobody else knows about the bed, but she's letting him know that she's never let anybody else into their bedroom. Because if she had.
So this is a similar type of thing to, obviously they were talking about having a secret code word to know that, if you're to make sure you're the any versions. And while that's not necessarily required based on, how the show works, obviously if you just take the story and being in a similar type of position, it does make a lot of sense to make sure that you're there. Bring up the story of Odysseus, and it's about, are you who you're supposed to be? Are you really that person?
but she's letting him know that she's never let anybody else into their bedroom. Because if she had, she couldn't use it as a test for him if other people knew about it. So
It's like the totems in Inception. Nobody else could touch it.
that's, I think, the best example of an ancient code word, at least the best that I can think
Oh yeah,
of.
that's what I was thinking.
And
yeah.
She should have just referenced Inception.
something that Mark and Helly could definitely use if
Wow,
they had
that's
something
super
like it.
interesting. Do you have any speculations about the numbers?
Well, I think this simulation thing makes sense to me with the numbers.
Yeah.
It's either that or it's something like, I think with Mark's wife, what is her name? Carrie or something like that?
Gemma.
God, I'm terrible with
Miss
names. I can't-
Casey.
Miss Casey, that's right. Miss Casey.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Miss Casey is the severed version. Miss Casey is what they call the any version of Mark's wife, Audi Mark's wife, that he doesn't even know. So now, again, he's Mark is at work interfacing with this woman, Miss Casey. All the while, Miss Casey is actually his dead wife. But he don't know that because he's the innie. I said, I absolutely adore this Greek shit. Well, if you haven't seen Severance, it's all up in there.
Casey.
Maybe something to do with bringing the dead back.
Oh wow! Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Because
How the fuck are you watching Severance and you didn't think about bringing people back from the dead?
they faked her death, but why do they fake her death? I mean, she was what, a professor of Russian literature?
Yeah, I wonder if
think?
she's in on it.
Maybe she's in on it,
That's been a big question.
but maybe there's actually something going on where they're trying to defeat death in some way, bring Kier back, something like
Oh,
that.
that's interesting. What's up with all the goats?
I don't know.
I just watched the season 2 finale and I still don't know what's going on with the goats.
I don't know. Maybe Lumen is also like, because don't medical companies make chemicals by processing them through animals, like cows and horses do this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
At least rats. I mean, they definitely test makeup on rabbits. I know that much.
That was the first thing I thought of. But otherwise, I don't know why the goats. That was very strange.
And then the hallway that they kept painting.
I mean, the tiny hallway, or
No, they I can't remember his name.
Irving.
He kept painting a hallway.
the one that goes down.
Yeah.
So another interesting point that's brought up about another one of the characters that works with the main cast is the oldest of the it's 4 of them that work together, and the one who's been there the longest. You start seeing very early on in the series that he is having these like waking dreams of like black gunk, and you're not really sure what's going on. And minor spoiler, it ends up that he is referencing in his Audi life something from work that is on a different floor, not the severed floor where you go and you turn into your work self, but a different floor of the same building where some other stuff is going on that we don't really know about. And it's, this dark hallway and there's a lot of mystery around that. And it's a very interesting way, as they're talking about communicating and talking about, oh, are you sure you're the work version, not the out version? This is a different aspect of one person trying to communicate with the outer version of themselves. They don't let you bring out any written messages. They don't want you to, they want that complete severance. So there's a big storyline with that. And then of course the hallway becomes very important, but the way that it gets introduced is this guy figured out a way to, on the outside, do stuff that would leak in on the inside. Caller said, who makes this show? It is on Apple. It's on Apple and is directed by Ben Stiller. And Ben Stiller can direct like a motherfucker.
That seems very much like an underworld sort of thing. Like they're living, they're in a state of limbo, right?
See, I was thinking actually, a cave. The Plato's cave is what I was thinking.
Like the cave, but it's a lot like pre-Platonic and pre-Virgilian ideas of the afterlife. Yeah. So Plato,
the 9 circles of hell,
talks about an afterlife where people get punished or rewarded. And Virgil in the Aeneid has this very elaborate afterworld that Dante then picks up on. But for the most part, in ancient Greek and Roman texts, especially ancient Greek texts, being dead is just really boring. It's like being in an airport lounge. Like it's not terrible.
God,
you're not suffering.
Being in airport lounges.
Yeah, well, because you can buy like snacks and magazines. But imagine if you couldn't. When everything's closed and they have all those.
Can I listen to music and podcasts?
gates down. That's what being dead's like. You're just really bored and you want to be anywhere else.
See, I think that's really interesting because I think that to me is what heaven would be like.
Being really bored?
Well, yeah, I mean, you just have no aspirations. You'd have no, like, nothing to strive towards.
But you also have no satisfaction, right? Because if you're dead, you can't eat anything. There aren't really any colors to look at. Nothing.
Well, that is, I mean, of course, that depends on what you believe happens in the afterlife. But if you're saying that this is what the afterlife is, certainly this is not the Christian view of the afterlife or any of the Abrahamic religions. But it's certainly possible. And I think, in the interest of, saying that instead of having this grand afterlife and treating our time on earth as just life as a waiting room, then if you believe that after you die, you're just sitting around, it might make you want to cherish the time that you have here a little bit more. So he's in Norse mythos. The dead are alive just in the cold ground. Yikes. Well, exactly. That's the question that we're talking about, and what she's talking about is certainly not the Christian heaven, but we're just talking about afterlife, not the afterlife, but what could possibly happen after you are alive and then dead.
Because if you're dead, you can't eat anything. There aren't really any colors to look at. Nothing changes.
Yeah. So if you're in, like, I would never want to be in heaven for eternal. Like, if you really think about an eternal life, that seems like horrific to me. Like, that seems like hell.
Yeah. Well, it would have to be life in a different kind of body, because this kind of body.
The only way that heaven would work is if you are not you. The only way that heaven would be something that you would want is to not be you. At the very least, there are people that you know and love that are burning eternally from your own family, your own friends. If you can experience happiness to that degree, then either you're really fucked up or you're not you.
I think once
different
changes.
Consciousness. I mean, that have to be something so fundamentally different that I can't even imagine it would be me.
Yeah.
And any of the constitutive elements that make me.
Well, maybe that's part of what we're supposed to think about with severance. What does it mean to be you, if your mind is totally different?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some interesting things in philosophy. What it's like to be a bat. DIDNT has some things.
Yeah, we're talking about qualia. One Defoe said Valhalla and reincarnation sound much better. I don't know, man. I'm kind of good with this is all we've got. I'm going to make the best of it, and then I'm done. I'm good. I don't need eternity. Because, again, if there's a lot of bullshit in life. So if we're talking about reincarnation, then I got to do this again? I got to do this again? I didn't want to do this today. Just kidding. But, so that aspect. Valhalla is, very similar, from what I understand at least, to the Christian heaven, but it's more of, well, actually, let me ask you then, what is different about Valhalla that sounds better to you than just a blank overlife? Zippy said hell keeps the dead in the ground or something of the like. I'd argue the Christian strain, the Christian heaven is in spirit, which is in you, but in a you're perfect, but in human form, or you're perfect in human form. All right, fair enough. So I said, I don't know why we're adverse to flaying the tattooed skin of our deceased heroes and musicians.
What?
Why would you want to do that? Where did this come from? Yikes. He said, Odin is a swindler seeking the next war of gods. Sure, you're a drunk warrior. I'm a drunk warrior. Okay, come on, man. Just take 2 extra seconds. 2 extra seconds.
Interesting things in philosophy, what it's like to be a bat. DIDNT has some things, NATO has some things. A lot of people have written some, Donald Davidson's written some stuff. So I don't know. It's just so interesting to me how something can emerge that not only myself, but so many people who've never even thought, it just lends itself. Even so, this is okay. So even if these ideas are absurd, it's kind of like string theory. It's like a lot of really smart people have made a lot of really interesting math for something, even if it's all nonsense. So even if this isn't all nonsense, I think it's caused people to think about
I mean, yeah, me too. If I believed in an active, if I actively believed in an afterlife, I wouldn't want to get rid of them. So I'm just very confused as to why you would want to do this. Where does this, did they say something about this that I missed? Like, I'm very confused. So Zippy said Valhalla or reincarnation, or no, that was who said that? I'm getting confused here. Okay, so Unwanted Foe said Valhalla and reincarnation would be better. Zippy says Valhalla is where dead warriors go, so lots of drinking, fighting, and fornication. Well, if that's what I want in a and I were a Christian, would that not be what heaven would be for me?
even if it's all nonsense. So even if this isn't all nonsense, I think it's caused people to think about personal identity, about
Severance?
ethics,
Yeah.
about what it means to consent to things,
Yeah.
about personhood more broadly.
That's what art should do. And I think that's what science fiction does extremely well. And I think it's also, though I'm partial to it, what ancient Greek literature does, specifically Greek tragedy.
How does Greek tragedy do that?
Well,
Quality says fornication for the win.
like science fiction, it shows you the kind of extremes of imagined human experience. So in science fiction, the extremes are things like, what if you could sever your consciousness? Or like, what if you were on a planet that was, 95% women and 5% men? How would that change society? Or
I'd be about that society for sure.
Or what if?
Yeah.
In an ancient context, it's what if your entire city was destroyed and everybody you knew was killed and you knew you had to go and live with the people who killed them? What would life be like?
That would be,
right? Or what if you found out?
Nat Turner. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, contact. Talking about reincarnation or a heaven that is akin to a Christian heaven. This kind of seems like a similar thing that could apply to both, slightly in different ways. But you live, you die, you wake up in the ultimate game pod, smile, load a new life, live again. At what point are you like, I'm done with this? I don't want to do this anymore, because you can't bring people with you. So it's just you. And so that's what I mean. You're not you anymore, because I can't bring Morty with me. There is not any plane of existence where I want to be any longer than I have to be without Morty. So if he's not there, then it's not heaven. And if I'm happy with it, then I'm not me. I don't make no sense. Okay, Zippy's take 2 said, I'd argue Christian heaven is in spirit. The Bible speaks of your soul and your spirit, which are different things, which is you, but in a perfect form of you. Think of it as attaining pure enlightenment. You're you, but in a perfect non-human form. There you go. Interesting. So you're you, but in a perfect non-human form. But that's kind of a big thing. It's not about being human, or it's not about being perfect. It's about being me. Because again, if I am perfect, I am not me. I am far from perfect. And I mean, the Christians say you can't bring people with you. And as much as we treat them that way, the Christians, I'm pretty sure, don't think that even overlord dogs are allowed in heaven. I mean, Disney, definitely, but I don't know about the Christians. Claudia said, Greek tragedy, when someone fucks up your gyro. We need to lighten that up a little bit. Good job. Ty said, Norse Viking buried entire ships underground, burying their dead. I'm still like, you just brought up filleting people. Can we like talk about this? Like, you just threw that out there and they're just like, no, I didn't say anything crazy. Gomtech, so the same reason people keep playing video games? I don't know. I don't even fully believe in simulation theory. Well, that is a different thing, because if you believe, so we already at the most basic level, we know that The Sims is a game that exists, right? So on some level, and of course there's other, higher simulation, but I'm saying on the most basic level, For every iteration of the game The Sims, that is a simulation of life. Well, explain it right now. So every iteration of the game The Sims is a simulation of base reality. Every simulation that tries to predict the weather, that anything is in a simulation model is going to be a simulation. Then you get to a level where if it is possible that what we are living in is a simulation, then base reality has gotten to a point where simulations are so realistic, or at least realistic enough, that the people in the simulation don't realize they're in a simulation. If you like what I'm talking about, go fucking watch Pantheon. Go fucking watch Pantheon. So when you understand that, and you understand that each person has the ability to create at least one simulation, and then within that simulation, there's millions of people who can make their own simulations, then now we have one base reality that's not a simulation. Let's say, for the purposes of the argument, this is the God-given, the God-created reality. There's only one God-created reality. But there's billions upon billions, if not trillions, of simulations. And so the chances of us being in the one base reality versus being in an advanced simulation where we just think we're in base reality, statistically does not make sense. So that's just on a statistical, theoretical level. That doesn't mean that we do live in a simulation. But if you believe that simulations can be such that those in the simulation are not aware that they're in the simulation, then mathematically it doesn't make sense that we would not be in one level of those simulations. Zibby, so when you attain enlightenment, you're beyond the mundane things in the world, such as emotions and bodily needs. There are reasons. There are parallels in Christianity and Buddhism, along with many other religions. Agreed. No. Say this again in case I forget to. Okay. Just because there's just more on topic, so I just want to make sure. I want to vote. So reincarnation. Reincarnation into a different world. Let's go with that for those who want it. That's my kind of heaven. Why, though? Why? Amashanine said, I'm definitely in the minority, but I'm a Christian who thinks pets join us. Don't attempt to get me to think otherwise. Hey, if that's the way it is, I am certainly not trying to fight it. So I said, True Sims is boring unless you're pre-adolescent. For the player. Sims is boring for the player, not for the Sims. The point is that we could be more advanced version of the Sims. That we may be a boring game to some other higher being that is moving all of this around. The Sims don't realize that they are Sims. The Sims think, quote in quotes, for all intents and purposes, they think they're real people. They're obviously more simplistic than we are, but we don't actually have any proof that we're not just the more advanced level of the Sims. And that even to that extent, that the Sims is the most basic simulation. It's a simulation within a simulation within a simulation within a simulation. So maybe the Sims is the bottom level, and we're right above that. But then there's a super intelligent being that's in a simulation that's created our universe as a simulation. But that simulation that created our universe is itself a simulation from a godlike, it just go to infinity. And when you understand that, then you really have to contend with the numbers there. That there could be trillions upon trillions upon trillions of existences with different simulations and one base reality. Does that mean we're not in the one base reality? No. You can take it away from simulation, and you can talk about the fact that it's very likely that there's intelligent life elsewhere in the universe. But it is also possible that if we are in whether or not we're in base reality, it is entirely possible that the only intelligent life that exists in the entire universe is on this planet. It's also possible that on Earth is the first iteration of intelligent life in the universe, and that in the next million, billion, whatever years, that Earth-like populations are going to pop up all over the universe, that we're just first. All of these things we don't know. And we, at this point, can't know. So, sorry to bring it back to religion, but when somebody claims, no, I know this is what's going on with the universe, do you know? Probably not. Probably not. I said, my kind of heaven is where I don't have to tolerate the presence of my family except for my dad. I feel that. But okay, so then, I'm not specifically asking, but if we're saying that everyone in your family, except for your dad, deserves to go to a hell, or rather, no. If everyone in your family, you're not about them, but they don't deserve to go to hell, and they're in hell, being eternally punished, are you and dad going to be able to hang out and just have a good time knowing that that's going on? Is that you? Maybe. I don't know your life. I'm not, but in general, people would typically say no. One folks said, why? I would love a world with magic or super advanced technology to fly around space. Well, we might have it here. You never know. Yeah, never know. Gontek said, reincarnation for those who are bored of a perfect heaven. Into what? Fair enough. I mean, definitely an interesting perspective. So, like, reincarnation is like a choice. So you can go to a perfect heaven, and then this is like the Good Place. Spoilers for the Good Place. But great show. If you're into this stuff and you haven't seen The Good Place, like just a sitcom, Kristen Bell, Ted Danson, very light, but still dives into directly moral philosophy. Like there's an entire episode with the trolley problem. So again, a show for that is right in this world. Speaking of which, I almost forgot. Equality. Well, first said, of course. Equality said, of course you can bring pets into heaven. Husbands bring their wives. Hey yo. But Equality asked about can't turn that one off. Equality asked about Pantheon. So Pantheon is an animated show, but it's an American show. It's not anime. It just happens to be animated. It's a show from AMC that almost got canceled after the first season, but the second season came out and it was kind of hidden. Now it's on Netflix. I'm pretty sure you can find it on AMC Plus or Netflix, but definitely Netflix. And is the story of basically this girl whose dad died, and he was like this super genius scientist that was working on uploaded intelligence, where it's not like a clone. It's not like splitting your brain like in Severance, but you die and it physically lasers your brain and reads the neurons and it uploads your intelligence to a computer so you could live forever and stuff like that. I don't want to give too much away, but all the stuff that we're talking about, especially when I was specifically saying, if this stuff is interesting you, go watch Pantheon, that stuff. So that is Pantheon. Everybody. I'm too young. I just know the reference. Shout out to your dad. And anyone else who's in heaven. I'm not even gonna dilly. So I said heaven and hell are here on earth. I believe it. So he said if you do not get into heaven, you go to hell or live without death in a world without God. Where's this? Is this you saying this, or is it what? Give me some context here. So I said, have any of you ever spoken with someone who's died? I don't think so. Gomez said, kind of like the spirit chooses to reincarnate when they're bored of heaven. Give me a challenge. I don't want to be alive. I want to live. That could work for sure. I said, leave the dead to the dead. I agree. Yeah, Quality. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. All of you guys. Pantheon, I cried at both season finales. It's only 8 episodes, 30 minutes an episode. Within 8 hours of content, somehow they tell a full story. They flesh out the characters. They and it's complex too. Like talking about uploaded intelligence and multiverses and simulation theory and all that kind of stuff in 8 hours. Wow. So he said, not to bash the Abrahamics, but they seem so much worse than the Pantheon systems. There's a karma decides reincarnation in a lot of religions, right? Yep, that's I don't know exactly how far back. Not my grandfather on my father's side, but I think Papa Lutch's grandfather, if not his grandfather, very into the Hindu stuff. And we were, they have the caste system, right? We were top class. I mean, like, you know what I mean? But what is it called? The Brahmin class or something like that? What are the caste levels in Hinduism? Yeah, what are this? Of course, the tiniest fucking thing in the world. Yeah, the Brahmins, traditionally they were scholars, priests, teachers. Oh, sorry. The Brahmins, traditionally they were scholars, priests, teachers, and considered to be at the top of the hierarchy of one of the elites. And then there's all these other fucking losers, all the way down to the Dalits, the untouchables. No, just kidding. Just kidding. I don't believe in this. But a decent amount of people in my family did, and we were up there. And point being, karma is a very big part of that. Zippy said, remember when Jesus takes the faithful home in revolutions, God leaves the world. So life, death, causality, gonna be fucked. You say so. Really, equality. I'm gonna let that sit with you. I'm gonna read the rest of these, and then I'm gonna come to your bullshit ass comment. Your bullshit ass comment. How dare you?
How dare you?
Jaden said, bad part about it is that when me and my brother and sister were little, he died. We didn't even get to say goodbye. Still cry about it, but my stepdad is nice, but he's not replacing my dad. Can't replace a dad. I am sorry to hear. As a karma translated from Sanskrit is action, period. The infinite wisdom balances itself with or without our consent. So says Sanskrit, right? Shout out to Dylan Sue. Welcome to the party. Said, I would like to believe karma is like a currency you get to use to choose your new reincarnated life. Interesting way to choose it. Yeah. So equality and difference said height must not be a requirement.
How dare you?
That's mean. Why you gotta be mean? You gotta be mean. As we said, hard caste systems is why India was controlled by the British and why the French failed so badly. Yup. All right, let's dive back in here. I feel like I was gonna say something, but I don't remember what it is. Oh, I remember. Okay.
Or what if you
Guam check the VIP chat.
you found out?
Nat Turner. Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be.
But if you're a woman, for example, as in this, so the play I'm talking about there is Suppliant Women by Euripides. And so it's all the women who are left alive after Troy falls, or Trojan women, excuse me. Or what if you find out that you married your mother and killed your father? What would you do? And then what does that say about being a person when your choices are so limited in these situations?
Yeah,
where you
it's
say,
so interesting.
I'm just absolutely pressed down by life and the things that have happened to me, and what is still in my capacity to do, which I think is a question that Severance brings up, and a question that Greek tragedy brings up.
Oh, that's really interesting. If I may ask, what other science fiction do you like?
Oh, so I'm more of a
Pantheon
of a reading science fiction person. I've never watched any Star Trek. Someday.
Oh my God,
I
you're
know,
almost
I know.
dead to me. That's crazy to me.
But
Wow.
I love Ursula K. Le Guin.
Oh,
She's
wow.
my absolute favorite. I named my older daughter after her.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
I also
Ursula's a cool name too.
it is a cool name. It means little bear in Latin.
Yeah.
It also means foe to Ariel.
Yeah.
So I love Ursula K. Le Guin. There's a great novelist named John Varley.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, Steel Beach.
Yeah,
Maybe you've heard of.
Yeah.
But I've read a bunch of different science fiction, and I love things like Severance, also the Foundation series on
Of
Apple.
course. Yeah, of course.
Which is just so fun to watch.
You know, I did a what's the name of that thing I did? The book thing here with the. So I did.
Books and is it Books and Builders or something like that?
Yeah. That's right. So I did Books and Builders here, and they said, you know, what book has profoundly affected your life?
Oh.
And talk about it with the students.
Yeah.
And,
what did you choose?
Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I chose Joe Hadelman's The Forever War.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Which I have not read yet. And I keep meaning to. Yeah.
I mean, it is I think it's an absolute timeless masterpiece.
And isn't Heinlein's Starship Troopers kind of paired with that a lot of the time?
I like that. I mean, I used to read all that stuff as a kid, you know, high school, pre-high school. So you don't watch any science fiction, you just read it.
I watch it as it comes up. I've just never watched Star Trek.
Oh, have you seen Dark Matter?
Oh, there was a time when I would you're good. Go on, Tech. I was just asking if it's convenient. Here, I'll just whatever. Oh, so that you make your own decisions, sir. Oh Jesus, what did I do? Is that right? Okay. You make your own decision. What was I about to say?
Just read it.
I watch it as it comes up. I've just never watched Star Trek.
Oh, have you seen Dark Matter?
No, but he's going back and finding his wife, right?
Yes.
Okay. Where is that a Netflix show? Dark Matter. I definitely. Oh, it's another Apple TV. Okay. 81 on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.7 out of 10. Jennifer Connelly. All right, maybe I'll check. Maybe we'll check it out, and we might have another Philosophy Friday and talk about what's going on in Dark Matter. Shout out to Right Click. I definitely got to check out Silo. But we will see. Jason said that's why I don't talk about him. It's upsetting. I bet. Ty said, Dad asked me if I remembered a poem he'd written me when I was 16. Just this evening, Jaden. I have the original. There you go. And I and personally, in terms of people that I've lost, I find that talking about it is a way to instead of and not that anybody has to do anything that I do or not, whatever. I'm just talking about myself here. But talking about, and you guys have heard me talk about Akon all the time, and how that's really helped me kind of work through it. So let's bring out our boy Guam Tag. Welcome to the party. I was very, very interested to see what your thoughts on all of this was. Guam. Get some issues there. We'll see if we can see if he can get that fixed.
Have you seen Dark Matter?
No, but he's going back and finding his wife, right? Yes.
Parallel worlds, an unplumbed aspect of science fiction, in my opinion.
Yeah. Parallel worlds. So there's a really good Neil Stephenson novel, also great science fiction, called Anathem. That talks about quantum theory and potential parallel worlds. And it's a Neil Stephenson novel, so it's like 2,000 pages long. But it also, it's one I like a lot because it also has jokes about Plato in it.
All right, take two. Can we hear you? It's not on my side, right? I see a mute and unmute, but we're not getting any sound. Just talk. If you fix it, just talk, and then.
So there's something for everyone there, but it talks about kind of parallel worlds in a sense that there are better and worse ones, as well as different scenarios, and the ability to kind of move between parallel worlds to a certain extent. To me. It's a really interesting idea.
I watched an episode of. I'm a complete fanatic science fiction. I'm literally a fanatic. I'm constantly told that's not something to be proud of. But there was a great throwaway line in Star Trek Voyager What, you know what a Vulcan is?
Mhm.
Yeah. So they
Somebody quick, what's a Vulcan? I remember like the Vulcan mind something. Just give me a quick something.
basically went to this place. It's a long story. And this guy who's a Vulcan pulls a book. I think it was a Vulcan guy, pulls a book off the shelf, and it was Vulcan Reflections on Platonic Thought.
Interesting. All right, take 3.
All right, is it there? Oh my God.
Welcome to the party, Guamtech.
What's up?
Very
Yeah.
good to see you.
I don't know how much I'm gonna be able to really dive into it because I've only seen the one episode, but I mean it's a really interesting idea.
So you said you were saying you definitely wouldn't get severed, but not because of necessarily any ethical issues with creating a slave or anything. But for you personally, it's more just about the growth. What happened? What the fuck is going on? Hold on. Okay, just about the growth that you get with learning what you do at your job.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's unethical and immoral as well. But yeah, like and this probably isn't the case for everybody, but I do get a lot of value from the job that I perform, and I do think that it actually, I feel.
Oh, we lost him again. Oh no. The YouTube gods are like, Guamtech, shut the fuck up. Try doing exactly whatever you did before. It worked. So try that again.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. So did any of that come through?
You're saying I don't remember what you said.
Okay. So I was just saying, like, first of all, yes, I do think it's unethical and immoral and all that shit. But as far as my personal feelings about my work, I do feel like all of the skills that I've invested in my work also are used a lot in my daily life. And I feel like it all builds upon itself. So I wouldn't ever want to like sever any part of myself from the experience, because I just feel like, what's the point of doing anything if it's not all being added to the whole?
What if, and I'm not really sticking too closely to the show. It's more just about the concept. So what if you actually did get those benefits from doing the work, but you didn't actually have to experience the work?
I mean, that may make a difference, but even still, are you going outside like the ethical and moral part of it as well?
Yeah.
So, I mean, in my mind, I just can't see how that would actually be doable. Like, it would almost be like in your day-to-day life outside of work, it's like all of a sudden you're able to communicate better, and you have all of these like different skills of like objection handling and all that shit coming from sales, but it just came out of nowhere. So you would still be confused on like, where the fuck did that come from and why did I say it?
And even if you're not exactly sure what was done to give you these skills, then when you come out being better at selling and knowing to say, gotcha. So what I'm hearing you say, when you start saying that just naturally in every single sentence, you're not going to be confused as to where it came from, because you're like, oh yeah, I severed myself and I go do this sales job every day.
Yeah, I just feel like the experience is what makes the person. So you need those experiences.
You're getting the experience, and that's similar to what any film is just saying. He's like, severed, never. All the best hookups I've had have been through jobs. And you still get those connections. You still get whether you're talking about hookups, or you're talking about networking. You still get those. It's just a matter of that's your work self, and so it's just separated from your, we'll call it your relaxing self. So let's go
maybe another way to put it actually before that is I don't think that you can have the good without the bad, or vice versa. You can't appreciate it as much unless you have the bad. The only reason I appreciate the skills that I have is because I've worked so hard and got smashed from not having them. So that's the only reason I'm like, yes, I'm proud of what the hell I'm doing. Whereas in that world, it's like, okay, I can do it, but I can just do it. It's just something I have.
Definitely fair. So let's try to bring it away from you then, because I'd love to discuss the actual ethics of it. So
Actually,
in this,
can I ask one more thing?
sure.
So, does Neo from the Matrix appreciate that he knows Kung Fu?
I would say yes, but not to the same extent that you appreciate your jujitsu.
Right. Like he can use it and he uses it well and uses it the right way, but he doesn't have the feeling of accomplishment of learning it.
Okay. But, and just playing devil's advocate here, what if that satisfaction is achievable through something greater by just acquiring the skill and not necessarily having that that pain of growth. And let's say Neo's goal is to be the one and save the world and whatever. Do we really think that he's like, yeah, I saved the world, but I mean, I didn't really learn Kung Fu. You know what I mean?
Well, so his goal is definitely different than mine then. His goal is to save the world, so he's got to do what he's got to do. My goal is to be a better person by 1% every day.
Fair enough.
The only way I can gauge that is if I go through the hardship of it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So then, yeah, let's take it away from you personally and just talk about the procedure itself. So if so in the show, the guy lost his wife and he's just been drinking and throwing his life away. And so his options are either continue to do that or continue to do that and also have a job where he's making money, he can pay rent, and he's, as far as they tell him, part of something. What is the reason that person who doesn't have the same value of the pain of growth, as I've been calling it, they don't have the same value in that? What is the issue with that person getting severed?
I mean, exactly what the chick was saying, which was the moral dilemma of creating a slave. And maybe in his situation at first, he thought it would be a good idea, but now he has two different minds that are contending for the same body. And it's like you really are creating a person who is stuck in a box, and that's it. Like, if you don't feel like, I would ask him, would you be okay with having a dog that you just cage all day, every day?
I mean, a lot of people do. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
So then let's go ahead.
I was just going to say, but most people would say, like, that's probably not a good thing to do. Even the people who do it, it's probably for a reason outside of just being a dick.
So what if, so again, I'm trying to just tweak the variables to see what part of this is really the worst and what part of this, is there any part of this that is salvageable? So what if there was a in the beginning, the woman here, what the fuck? Oh, there we go. The woman here was talking about the freedom to die, the freedom to end your own life. If it was possible for these, so you go in and or somebody else goes in, they get severed. Now there's this new person who is essentially stuck there. But there is an avenue for them to not be stuck there. How much does that change the equation? Because they're in a box, but they're not stuck in the box.
Yeah, a lot more, in my opinion. They have a choice to, they can end it whenever they want to. Like either her or is that Peter? I haven't really been able to watch. I've been listening. Is that Peter Boghossian?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, one of them said, like, you get a choice, then you're truly free. So as long as you have some choice in the matter, I think that it does change that a little bit. It still doesn't make it right.
Yeah, I agree. So before I let you go, are you familiar with any of the things that I've referenced? Click with Adam Sandler, the two episodes of Black Mirror.
I do remember the Black Mirror episodes slightly. It's been a while. Didn't ever watch Click.
I mean, come on, man. That one was. It was like, you remember. Slight
Bro, I fell off Adam Sandler after like fucking Happy Gilmore.
Fair. But you remember, if you guys remember the marketing for Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, the marketing did not represent the tone of the movie at all. And this was, everybody knew Jim Carrey, oh, The Mask, Ace Ventura, whatever. They go in and it's just super dark, heavy, this heavy thing. And I don't even remember where I was going with that. But the
marketing for Click.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that the same kind of thing where like they didn't necessarily show how dark it was gonna be, and like, yo, they went hard in Click. So take the time to definitely check that out.
Yeah,
So,
I thought it was a cool idea. I mean, it's not like I feel like the comedy aspects were probably intentionally not put at the forefront. But yeah, it seems like a good idea for, especially an Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, I do think the idea of Severance is pretty cool. I gotta get that Apple TV going again. Maybe sit in and start to watch it again. You said Pantheon is on Netflix, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that one is one that I think I'm gonna try to sit down and watch.
That's my biggest recommendation. Other than Severance, I guess, but even still, like, it is up there. And because it's 8 hours, it's 16 episodes, 30 minutes each. It's like you can just bang through it, and it is so good.
The issue that I have with Severance is I feel like I'm the kind of person who the entire time I'm watching it, I'm just gonna be like, I don't agree with this at all. This is all bad. Why am I watching something I don't agree with at all?
Nah, that's what Severance does really well, is that it's super character driven in the sense that we know more about like Lumen and the Severance procedure and stuff like that. We know more than we did, 19 episodes ago at the very beginning, but kind of not really. And
so then would you say then the main draw of it is the mystery?
The mystery and the mystery is the main driver, but what keeps you hooked is the characters. The interactions that it fills out the space of just, what does Lumen do? Why are you Sever? What is she doing here? Is she good or bad? Like, these are just looming questions that from episode 1, the season finale on season 2, you're like, just tell me the answer. And usually shows like that, I hate it, but this show is good enough at giving you character stuff that leads you along and adds to the plot and the mystery.
So maybe I can, if I'm not going to take away from the show, I was just having a thought about like a show opposite of Severance and what the moral and ethical bullshit would be for that. So let's say it's the exact opposite. You share one consciousness between two bodies, but one body has to go to a locker every single day.
I think this is something that they do bring up. We're near the end of the conversation. I think this is something directly that they bring up, and it is an interesting thing that also kind of folds into a potential of where the show could actually go. Where you've created these two different people, and then there's a reintegration process, and that is essentially they're not sure if it erases the innie, the work version, or if it kind of blends them or whatever. And that definitely could be an interesting thing, or maybe somebody dies and you share your mind with them, going back to Black Mirror.
Or like, the ethical and moral questions of like, is it okay and right to create another human body without the consciousness until you go into it? Is the body worth, or does the body itself have any rights, or is it just the consciousness that inhabits it? I don't know if I've ever looked into that in the philosophy at all.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very interesting. I'm gonna have to sit on that for a show. Well, thank you so very, very much for taking some time out of work to come on up and chat with us, brother. Anything you want to shout out?
Not really. I'm just really freaking boring now.
Not at all.
I work. I do family stuff, and I get my ass kicked for fun.
I'm jealous, brother. I'm jealous. You go live your goddamn life. Thank you so very, very much for hanging out with us. Everybody shout out Guam Tag in the chat. Thank you, brother.
Later, y'all.
You have a good one. Interesting. So it's I like bringing up Glomtech on these types of things because he has a similar type of perspective, but a different set of values that makes it very interesting how we interact on these things. Let's shout out our boy Funk Master General for yet another 5 gifted memberships for a total of 20 gifted memberships. I should see 20 new members in the Discord. We're about to watch a movie. It's about to be movie night. Thank you so very, very much, sir. Of course, out sponsoring yourself. Very, very, very much appreciated. What was that? Right. Where we at? Zippy said they can afford doggy anxiety meds. Not the dog for the kids. The kids, is this for me? What are we talking about? Welcome Taco Baco said if either of the minds kill themselves, they are guilty of murdering the other. Just hopped in. Don't know if you covered this already. We didn't. So if you get severed, there's essentially 2 people in your mind. I would say yes. If there's only one body, but there's 2 people. So if you end the body, then you're making the choice for the other person. So I would say yes. If whether it's the outie ends themselves, then you're also guilty of murdering the innie. And then if the innie which is somewhat explored in the show, goes to end themselves, well, that's definitely murdering the outie. If for whatever reason we want to give primacy, you were the person first. Then he said, what is it they say about free will? You have options, but no choice. Oh, I get, yep. You just mentioned the freedom to die, but do they really have that? No. And that's what this lady was bringing up before, that's the ultimate freedom. You could say slaves and prisoners, and no matter what, you always have the freedom to decide how and when you die. And no, the Indians do not. Shout out to the Wachowskis. King said, how will our beloved characters get out free? Gonna have to keep watching. I don't know. We'll see ya. Shout out to Guam Tech. Thank you. And of course, always welcome. Yep. And your OF fans are waiting. Bro. We joke. Zippy said, without will, there can be no man. Without property, a man has no legs or feet. Without thought, a man is a slave. Ooh. I like it. And M169 running, well, not running, but our movie night, thanks to her, should be a good time. Zippy said, when you're talking about keeping a dog in the cage, people do it and make excuses. Same for abortion. Oh, getting heavy. Crazy stuff. All right, guys, let's finish this up. I believe what Quantek brought up about the opposite, I think they're about to talk about that, if I'm not mistaken.
That's great.
Vulcan reflections on Platonic thought.
That's great.
And I'm like, wow, whoever came up with that, that's just brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, that was another level. That's always one thing I wanted to do. I think if my career never panned out, I'd either want to be a restaurant critic or a science fiction, write science fiction plays. But I tried to write some. I did write some, but none of them got accepted. So
I satisfy myself with reading them. But speaking of parallel worlds and Vulcans and Plato, have you ever read Dan Simmons' Ilium?
No, should I?
Yeah. So Dan Simmons is most famous for Hyperion,
yes,
which is based on the Canterbury Tales and talks about John Keats. Ilium is a bit like that, but it's about Homer and it's about the Iliad. But it also talks about Shakespeare.
Tell me the name again.
Ilium. So Ilium is the other name for Troy in the Iliad. So it's called the Iliad because it's a poem about Ilium, the city. But the Dan Simmons book is the Trojan War is happening. And as you start reading this book, you're in the Trojan War and you're like, wow, this is even the Lattimore translation of the Iliad, but then you realize that it's taking place on Mars.
Oh,
And
wow.
that the
That's so
ancient Greek
cool.
gods are
Yeah.
like in some way super technical beings, and they've imported Homeric scholars from Earth to observe the Trojan War happening. And then there's another side, like a timeline about robots who are very interested in Proust and Shakespeare and spend all of their time analyzing Proust and Shakespeare. And then on Earth, there's a whole
Wow.
Sounds like it could be cool, but sounds like a story that Netflix would destroy.
conflict going on between the last remaining humans who have been kind of bred to extinction and these very murderous robots. And at a certain point, it becomes clear that in addition to everything else that's going on in this book with its quantum theory and its rich literary background,
Yeah.
that it's also very, very strongly a post 9/11 book.
Oh, interesting. How
And
so?
there's a point where one of the heroes is walking under the ocean and he finds a
Under
submarine,
the ocean?
and the submarine is full of warheads. It's been abandoned for thousands of years, and it's full of warheads, and each of them has a tiny black hole in it. So that if they were ever shot
Oh,
out, the
wow.
black hole would pass through the Earth and then come back and pass through it again. So had these warheads been fired, the Earth would have been completely destroyed.
Oh, wow.
And in the book, he finds out that this submarine is full of jihadis.
Oh, boy.
And
Wow,
so
that
I
sounds
was reading this book because I
excellent.
was like,
Wow.
oh, I love Homer, I love science fiction, this is perfect for me. And then I got to it and I thought, oh, I know when this book was written, right? You know when it came out.
I'm still waiting for you to come and fucking tell me exactly your position on IP rights. I'm picking up pieces here and there from the chat, but I need you to explain it to me.
To have this kind of plot line. But it's very moving. And then there's a lot in the end about anti-Semitism as well.
Oh, really?
So I totally recommend it to you. It's wild and
Really?
very hard to
Do
describe.
you write science fiction too, or do you just
No.
read it?
I just read it.
Interesting. I had a course in high school that profoundly, well, it wasn't a course. We had to read so many books a semester.
Mhm.
And we got, I can't remember, it was obviously a long time ago, but it was a science fiction and fantasy. And you could pick, they gave you a list.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool if University of Austin had kind of, if we could get, I don't know, a famous science fiction person to teach science fiction, or the history, or I don't know,
Yeah.
something. I think it'd be, I don't know. I'm giving away my I'm showing too many of my cards because I'm a huge fan.
If
but-
someone could teach a science fiction course, somebody who really liked science
Right,
fiction, and
but I'm
maybe
not-
I could have sworn they talked about having multiple people in one body.
someone. So
I know there's been discussion about putting, for example, Canticle for Leibowitz on one of the
that's a
syllabi.
great
It's
book.
because it's definitely
So how's it going for you here at University of Austin?
very
Engage. Yeah.
people who are kind of
Okay, I thought they brought it up. I don't know where I heard that. I definitely heard a discussion very recently. I could have sworn it was that. Let me look at my history. It has to be something recent. What have been what? Oh, I was like, when? What? I was like, why am I watching this? For that. Okay. Was it the Truman Show? God damn it. I don't remember. I was just watching something that that was talking exactly about that. That if there's instead of two people in one body, then like I was saying, there is a process to undo the severance in the show. And they call it reintegration. So you reintegrate the two sides into one. And so I'm going to get into a little bit of spoilers from the season 2 finale, but nothing crazy. And there is a part where Mark is Outie Mark is talking to Innie Mark, and they're trying to decide like what's good with this. And Outie Mark is like, yeah, let's just reintegrate and we're good. And Innie Mark is like, doesn't that mean I disappear? He's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Like, it'll be both of us. Like, well, but you have like 20 more years. I've only been working at this job for 2 years. And yeah, it definitely has a similar type of tone that questions identity, questions who owns the body, who owns the time, and so like if we could think of, let's say, the reintegration process didn't have didn't just make it one person again. But going back to Black Mirror, if you saw the end of season 4, the Black Museum episode, and they have the mommy loves you, mommy needs a hug, the teddy bear. There is, again, spoilers for Black Museum, end of season 4 of Black Mirror if you have not seen it. There is, just this museum of a bunch of stuff, and one of them is a teddy bear that has the consciousness of a woman in it. She died while her husband and her son were really young, and there was a procedure in this universe where they could put her consciousness into the husband's brain. So she was back there. She was in there. She could feel everything he could feel. He could smell everything he could smell. He could hear her in his head, all that stuff. But obviously that became very intrusive. And so the question was like, it got to a point where he could turn her access off. And she was like, that's not fair. Don't do that. And, it started where, it clicked off and like, okay, I just needed some time to chill. I'm back and whatever. He talked in the mirror like this, like I'm looking at myself. And, because she is in his head. Eventually, it's too much. Shuts her off. And same kind of thing. It's off and then on again because she's not there. It's not like she's sitting in the dark. And she's like, wait, what's with all the Halloween decorations? I thought it was July. It's like, it's Halloween. I've had you turned off for 8 weeks. And it gets dark from there. So either way, I think sharing consciousness and splitting consciousness, I think one mind, one body. And if you believe in a soul, one soul, I think that is the way to go. So, I mean, definitely an interesting topic. I don't know if I did it justice. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. I know Zippy loves a rabbit hole. Maybe not this kind, though. Either way, let me know what you guys thought about this, because I would love to bring in more stuff from pop culture where we can discuss it. But, I'm beholden to you guys. So let me know what you think. Either way, I want to thank you guys so very, very much for hanging out, especially on a Friday night. You guys could be doing anything in the world, and yet you are here with me and Morty, and it means the world. Let's give a big shout out to the donations. Thank you so very, very much. We got mostly Funkmaster as always, but unwanted foe, Arrow in there as well. Thank you. More Funkmaster. Thank you so much. Of course, our sponsor of the stream, Mr. Funk Messer General. Guys, if you were gifted a membership, it was the perfect night because we were about to not only have the after party, but we're about to watch a movie. So come on through, even if you are not a member. Click the link pinned to the top of the chat. It is free to join. It is absolutely free to join. And good call, Guamtech. I almost forgot about my Swogo. So let's get our music up in here. I'm going to take my hoodie off for this. Let's get this going. All right, guys. Time to get it. Better for yourselves. Y'all better be doing push-ups with me. Now that we hit a goal, we got 10 this time. We're going to hit 15 next time. Let's do it. Y'all ready? Let's go. Get on the go. 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Very good, lads. There we go. And done. Hell yeah. Hell yes, guys. Thank you so very, very much. Not only for feeding the Overlord, but for bulking me up. Guys, thank you so very, very, very much. Only 15. Well, that's more than me. So shout out to you. I start the serving job tomorrow. I gotta get my cardio up, yo. I gotta get my cardio up. All right, guys, it is time for movie night. Let's do it. See you in the after party. I can see me and Lana are already there. Until next time, guys. Wait. That's not how it goes. Come on, you know better. You know better than that. Once again, guys, that is the Overlord, and I have been your host, Lech, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, we are out of here. Peace.